As you can see, the last 2 days I haven't been uploading much. I was a bit sick, but the billionaires and billionaires keep talking about XRP still, no matter what happens. And here we are, back at another day, another video.
Have an extremely vibrant and complicated and interconnected $130 trillion global economy.
You can see the last 2 days.
It's moving at the speed of light. The Fed gets together once a month, tries to divine what monetary policy, what the money supply should look like, based on data that is often incorrect. We see that in the GDP prints. We see it in all of the inputs. And so we've turned over responsibility to a handful of humans using bad inputs. And so I would actually question whether that responsibility should sit with a handful of humans looking at faulty month-old data. The two things that are the most dynamic, they are the worst at doing.
Today, we're going to be dropping some truth bombs on you wonderful XRP holders about the Fed, the monetary system.
So yeah, I feel like the issue with XRP right now, it's very much tied on how the global economy reacts. We can already see that. How the global economy reacts, this is how XRP will do, you know? And these ETFs, this is the real game changer we have for XRP right now.
Why it is indeed absolutely broken, and what we as XRP and cryptocurrency holders can start to do right now today to just be at the better receiving end of what sort of catastrophe is undoubtedly going to be happening very shortly, at least in my point of view. I do think that it is not great for anyone holding any amount of money, which, let's face it, most of us today were absolutely forced to do so. And something really bad has to happen for us to transfer over to the new financial system, which we will be getting into during this video. Today, Chamath, who is an amazing, very intelligent tech entrepreneur, philanthropist, amongst many other things, is really going to be breaking this all down and talking about how he views the future. And I think this is going to provide...
So Chamath is basically a billionaire, and he has mentioned XRP, like the technology behind it. He has been right on a lot of things. Regarding XRP, it's not just been one thing, two things, three things. There's been multiple things he's been right about this cycle. And that's what really makes me believe that, you know, these billionaires, they know more than us. They talk to billionaires daily, which really shows their plans for XRP, you know, for long term.
Provide a lot of value to many of you back at home, so I hope you guys will listen very closely to what he has to say, and a lot of the context that I'll be providing, diving deeper into the crypto world and how we're solving these pressing issues today. Smash that like button so everyone in the XRP and crypto army sees this video. Let's get right on into it.
Real question is, there are certain parts of what the Fed does that they can continue to do, and I think everybody would probably say it's an okay thing. So just to be very specific here so I get this right, could they be a lender of last resort? Personally, in my opinion, no. I think that Treasury does a better job. I think we saw Treasury do that during GFC. And I think that Treasury has a better mechanism to get the American taxpayer a win than the Fed does. Do they actually create monetary policy and price stability? I would say that the capital markets and the free markets actually do a better job of that. They define much more what the spread is. Do they do banking supervision and regulation? Yeah, they probably do a reasonably good job of that. That is probably something that most people would say they could continue to do. Do they do a good job as a payment system and a clearinghouse? Again, probably something that's pretty uncontroversial that they could continue to do.
So yeah, I feel like the main growth, like Fed really decides if the crypto goes up and down, but XRP has basically the ball in court, what's gonna change with it. That's the most important factor. How it's gonna change and what it's gonna do, it's entirely up to XRP. There, like if we go to $5, $7, it depends on its technology. The Fed can only like make it bearish or bullish.
So I guess my point is, Jason, the bigger picture is the two things that are the most dynamic, they are the worst at doing. And so I would actually question whether that responsibility should sit with a handful of humans looking at faulty month-old data. So for example, today, the Commerce Department did something that was pretty exceptional. They said, we're going to start publishing data to the blockchain. All the GDP data is now going into a blockchain. So can you imagine what this starts? I think, and we've talked about this before, I think employment data from all these employment companies and payroll companies should get published this way. GDP data can get published this way. All kinds of economic measures scrubbed for anonymity should get published so that you can have pricing oracles that actually tell you what's happening in real time. And the markets will then react and set rates in real time.
There's also a plan to make Ripple XRP go public from the rumors I heard. I hope that definitely happens because that would definitely boost the price.
Those are the two most sensitive things that I think the Fed does that creates controversy that they shouldn't be doing anymore. First of all, Bill Pulte's an exceptional American. He's a brilliant businessman. He's actually probably better served sitting at the Fed in some role, quite honestly, because he has been in the rate markets and the mortgage markets his whole entire life. So if Bill Pulte was able to get this in a reasonable, fair, and transparent way, which I have no doubt that he would have done anything other than that, the data is what the data is. And I don't know, I'll let somebody else litigate whether that's important. The more important issue for me is just acknowledging these people are political appointees. These are partisan employees. And this idea that the Fed is independent is maybe something that we should revisit because most of the things that they do can be done by Treasury and other people better.
Now, what was the importance of that timing? Well, Powell was renominated for a second term by Biden on November 22nd, 2021. So in other words, he went along with this whole transitory narrative to get renominated by Biden. And then a week later, on November 30th, he said it was time to retire the word transitory. And he then essentially announced that there'd be a policy shift, and then they didn't raise interest rates for another several months.
So this is also why XRP didn't pump so much during these years. You know, we were safely waiting for it to recover.
It was a historic tightening cycle, meaning the shock to the economy was incredible because the rate and the velocity of which he raised rates was unprecedented. So the real question is, had he been truthful going into a nomination process and done it much sooner, would the economy have been better off? And the answer is probably.
Yeah, for sure, because in that...
Like if we cut interest rates in October, obviously if we did it a year ago, the markets for XRP would be much better. But a year ago, you wouldn't be sure if the markets would crash because of this. Like we could cause a recession. That's why they haven't cut the interest rates yet. But with the emerging markets, it really does seem like that we are entering a new bull wave from the data we have.
Second half of 2021, we had a bubble. We had an asset bubble. We saw it in startups. We saw it in real estate. And that bubble was caused not just by artificially low rates, but also by the continued QE buying. I think Stan Druckenmiller has noted that the Fed, I think they bought something like 180 billion of government bonds and added them to the Fed's balance sheet. So not only were they resisting rate increases during that roughly 6-month period, they were continuing a QE policy designed to stimulate the economy.
What should the Fed do that is valuable today? Meaning, when it was created, I could understand how the government moved faster than industry. I think I can give that claim. We could all read it and realize what was happening to the economy, which was like, okay, it's time to find a glide path. But meaning a glide path means 25, wait, 25, not 50, then 0.
Okay.
That's not a plan.
So basically what Chamath and David Sachs are saying here, which I wholeheartedly agree with, is that the Fed has been doing a terrible job. I mean, let's be honest. They are using false documents and data to make decisions on the economy. And frankly speaking, I think most of us can agree we don't even want the Fed to have this power to begin with. It doesn't make any sense for an unelected official to be doing something that completely controls the state of the economy. Why would the Fed not be a public office in which we can vote on? I mean, it's very clear to me. What the reason why it was created this way is so that certain elitists with specific interests can put who they want into this private organization. They'll pay them nice money under the table through lobbyists or put them on the board of their company once they retire from the Fed. And as a result of that, they get an insider piece of information on every little thing that the Fed's going to do, which is going to...
Now, that's a far-fetched theory because, like, let's say you can have the general population that knows nothing about economics vote on the Fed if we should cut interest rates or not. While this would sound cool, you could basically sway the people who know nothing about economics to make a decision that could crash history. It was actually, that's why there's a board meeting for people who know when the markets are going to crash. But now Levi, you know, here has his own theory that basically people are going to decide when the markets change. But Jerome Powell is completely autonomous. He's not like, you know, being forced by anyone to make a pick here on cutting interest rate. The board's gonna make decision by themselves. And that's exactly the thing, based on the market data they have, which is real.
Massively affect the price of all assets, real estate, stocks, you know, the value of the US dollar, the world reserve currency.
That's why they haven't cutting interest rates, because if they cut interest rates too soon and we enter a full-blown recession like 2022, you could basically stop the whole economy, or you could set back, like make a Great Depression. It's even worse than Great Depression because now US is even stronger than before. So it's a very scary thought, you know? XRP would be probably like 5 cents.
It is infinite power for whoever is basically influencing the Fed's decisions. And they can do things that are completely against the best interest of the average working class American or people across the entire world, because everyone's transacting in US dollars to some capacity, and they can do whatever's in their own best interest. And these people have been making trillions of dollars between all the different hedge funds and institutions who are dipping their little toes into this little honeypot here.
I think like you can do that without waiting for the Fed or having an insider meeting with the Fed. Like there's a lot of great hedge funds who are just good at what they do. They predict what's going to happen in the markets, right? Again, they predict it. They don't get any data from that. And it pays off. It's a risk. It pays off. And that's how the market economies work. But yeah, cutting interest rates right now would be perfect, but like a year ago, it didn't make much sense, right? Because if you cut interest rates a year ago when XRP was 10 cents, you know, obviously at $3, it makes sense, but at 10 cents XRP, it makes no sense to cut these interest rates, which could crash the economy.
Blockchain is increasingly being integrated into government for this reason. The transparency that retail investors need is on the blockchain. And if everything that the government does is on blockchain and all the data that's reported is on blockchain, there's going to be no information which is false being used to make these sort of economic decisions, as long as they're done correctly.
The issue putting like your whole decision on the blockchain, like XRP cannot run even 1% of world transactions yet, or like 2%. So how can you handle 7 billion people's transactions, or like at least the USA? It's going to be very hard to do it on the blockchain. It's just a theory now because the technology is not advanced yet to even allow for this. That's what XRP is trying to do, right? Payment processing worldwide.
And so I think this is a huge part as to where finance is headed in the future. And this is massive for XRP and Bitcoin and Ethereum and every other cryptocurrency that we're headed in this direction. People are finally starting to wake up. They're thinking, yeah, it's time to abolish the Fed. We need a better system, and that system is crypto. Now, speaking of that, Chamath is going to give us a little bit more insight here, which I think is going to be extremely valuable to you guys. Let's hear what else he has to say. Very important stuff here.
For the election. She says that we're writing to urge the Fed to cut the Fed funds rate. And she says, for months, we've been calling on you to cut the Fed funds rate. And it says, in fact, it may be too late. Your delays have threatened the economy and left the Fed behind the curve. Inflation has fallen to 2.5%, well below the mid-22 peak of 7%. And then, goes on to basically say that employment numbers adjust slowly, so the Fed should front load rate cuts to avoid sliding towards a potential crisis. So the bottom line here is that Elizabeth Warren was saying that Powell needed to cut dramatically when inflation was at 2.5%. Now, Elizabeth Warren is saying that Powell needs to stand up to Trump and not cut rates. So you can see the hypocrisy here. You've got
yeah, but he's going to cut the rates because, the markets are telling him to cut the rates. Like, he's following the markets. He doesn't care about politics. He just wants to make the economy better. And it's a big decision Powell is doing for multiple millions of people.
Democrats like Elizabeth Warren were browbeating Powell to cut rates before the election. He apparently gave in to that pressure, cut rates 50 basis points, and then once Trump won instead of Kamala, then he stopped the rate cutting cycle.
You talked about this, and what you said was the markets reacted and they went down. You're absolutely right.
Really going up.
But you know what they did? They also repriced that risk well before the Fed got back together. It was within a few weeks that the market had completely repriced what was happening with tariffs. This is why I'm telling you that we are better off imparting the rate setting mechanism to the free market. Because when you have places like Commerce and Treasury increasingly publish all this real-time data into a blockchain, you can have pricing oracles, Jason, that make these decisions in real time and reprice this. No, every bank will have oracles that divine what they believe the risk-free rate would be. Then what happens is when you have a Treasury auction, in an auction, you submit a bid. And when
I wonder if banks will do that. You know how hard this is to set up? Banks are nowhere near. They have like an old system. Why would they be using a crypto system except XRP? Like oracles are a complete other thing. I could be misunderstanding this, but I don't know if banks will really use oracles. Maybe they already are. It's just that what I'm seeing right now is their main system is like making a system fast and cheap. That's what the banks want.
people submit bids, what happens is you converge on a market clearing rate. That happens independent of the Fed. And so what I'm saying is that if you actually inspect the ability to finance the United States government, the two critical things that happen can be done and are done well today by Treasury plus the free market.
So you want to abolish the Fed?
No.
For this purpose? For setting the rates?
Listen to me. They have four major responsibilities. I think that if you revisit what's happening, you can find two of those responsibilities that probably they can continue to do with a lot of usefulness. But it is clear that the free market does a much better job of setting the actual rate.
And listen,
I just feel like that the markets are decided by, like the Fed will decide like the start, but the end, like when the bull run stops or when the bear market stops and when XRP goes up, when the XRP goes down, that's really up to the people, right? Because like rate cuts will only help. Like rate cuts, even though we got one rate cut, XRP still went 10 times up. There's other factors at play than just rate cuts, ETFs, all of that, right? They're a good indicator what happens to the market.
I agree. I'm a huge advocate of the free market. I'm a huge advocate of just ensuring that everybody has the choice in the matter. I don't think it makes any sense to have some kind of private entity dictating how our currency is going to perform, how much it inflates, how much it deflates, how much, treasury yields are. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I hope you guys are starting to understand that by today's video and you understand why.
So yeah, I don't really think that's how like it works from what I understand the US economy. They're deciding if they're going to just cut the interest rates or improve them. So the data is in itself. It doesn't rely to the Fed. The data we have for XRP, it will never rely to the Fed. Unemployment data, we have unemployment data, we have M2 money supply. All of these factors are what's going to decide, for Jerome Powell to make more jobs or to cut more jobs. It's a very tough decision, but I feel like it's still good in that matter. The SEC just confirmed what's coming for XRP. Guys, we've been waiting for the XRP ETF for a long time. And isn't this the time that XRP ETFs really go up? Because we really need an XRP ETF if we want to push to $4, $5. So that's what I'm hoping for. SEC new plan to reform crypto regulation. So this includes XRP.
At home, we've been waiting absolutely patiently for the good news to start flowing in. And I know we've
been hit with lots of bad news in September, and obviously Septembers are known to go down. So just keep that in mind, guys, as well.
Some of you might say, oh, I am sick and tired. Every single day we have good news, but the price of XRP isn't blasting off. Well, here's the deal, guys, and this is what you guys need to remember. Everything is based around M2. Money supply, okay? And
I want to say the M2 money supply is how much money the banks have set up, or the people have the money in the banks. And this is usually delayed by a few months. This is what he didn't say. So yeah, these good news that we get, if the price doesn't move, it usually takes 1 to 3 months. So that's going to be in October, November, because the M2 money supply went up this month and last month. So yeah, in like October and November, that's when we get the good news.
If the money supply isn't increasing, it's very unlikely we're going to get these absolutely insane gigapumps like we had back in January, December, and November 2024. And, well, guess what? rate cuts are right around the corner here again. So you better lock in, because the 3 months after rate cuts happen is when the majority of that price action generally is foreseen in the markets for cryptocurrency anyways. And so now is the time to be patient, because if the Fed's going to cut rates now, much like what happened in November of last year, things are going to get insane in the next 3 month period of time. So let's talk about it. The SEC has unveiled a new rulemaking plan to reform crypto regulation. This is insanely massive on so many different levels. First and foremost, though, it's going to help Wall Street actually start to do initial coin offerings, IDOs.
I mean, that's the regulation that people were begging for the last 10 years, but because regulation takes so much time, it was not so easy. And now the government is finally like doubling down on this one.
Basically, massive pre-sales in the crypto space to start raising money so that they can fund their own crypto projects. And yes, those crypto projects are going to be hosted on pre-existing blockchains. Many people think this is going to be on Ethereum, Solana, XRP, you name it, but they're going to be issuing their own stablecoins, and those stablecoins will most likely be cross-chain in the future. Meaning, yes, they might initially launch on Ethereum, but eventually those stablecoins will also be cross-chain on XRPL, on Solana, on the Binance Smart Chain. They're going to be available everywhere. And so, with massive banks offering these stablecoins potentially to all of their clients internationally, we can see trillions of dollars come in because of what's happening right here. This is massive on so many different levels, and this is why I am so stoked today. You can see the SEC outlines several of its initiatives to overhaul existing crypto policies.
So yeah, all of the cryptocurrency policies that we saw, I feel like that will massively change, especially with Clarity Act. In the next 1 to 3 years, crypto will get probably fully regulated, which is a good thing for the prices. I mean, that's not what people expected when first Bitcoin came out, but it's not a bad thing for XRP, because this is exactly the scenario that is good for XRP, which has been kind of trying to go for that, getting it fully regulated instead of being fully private and not relying on any government. It's trying to do that, so when they have all these legal contracts, they will know what an XRP is and how it works and what it offers.
Something Chair Paul Atkins previewed in July. Those include proposing rules about the offer and sale of digital assets, which the SEC said could potentially include certain exemptions and safe harbors, and clarifying how its broker-dealer rules apply to crypto. Additionally, the regulator says it will consider amending its rules to allow for crypto to be traded on national securities exchanges and alternative trading systems, and such decisions would be a huge win for the digital asset industry, which is already on the rise in 2025. So it's not just the pre-sales like I mentioned before. These banks are also going to be able to finally offer crypto custody services with this being launched, okay? This is being unveiled right now. We're going to get complete clarity this month on what it is going to look like. And I imagine that the largest banks are not going to wait too long in order to do this. I mean,
this is like the start of the crypto partnerships. I mean, I feel like this is what US is waiting for, those US banks. They're in very early stages right now before we actually get to that later on.
There's quite literally no reason for them to wait this out. They want to offer custodial services so that they can earn on the transaction fees, just like they do with the bank right now.
That's very true.
Of course. They want stable coins because this allows them to buy immense amount of treasuries, which they can earn a yield on. Of course, this just makes sense. This is a whole new business model for all of these banks to make trillions.
And I feel like banks will also charge fees to buy, stable coins. So that's another part of them where they will make money.
Billions of more dollars. Why would they not take advantage of this instantly? Well, of course they are going to. They're in the business of money. They want to make money. They're money focused. That's the whole purpose of a bank. So this is crazy. But there's also a lot going on in the Federal Reserve as well, including...
Now this is the part where I skip because I don't really feel like it relates to XRP. But this part I really like. The U.S. labor market is in trouble. Job cuts just surged by 88,000 in August 2025 alone. So you see jobs are back, which means year-to-date job cuts whopping 66%. There was a lot of firings, but this actually dropped down. So the unemployment rate is still super low, productivity is still super high.
Rates. There's no other way. More liquidity needs to enter into the markets. And
that's why, Jerome Powell will cut rates because of this firings we had. He's blaming them that we are going to be cutting the rates now and getting basically more jobs available to the market due to lower interest rates.
20. This brings the year-to-date total up to 892,000 job cuts, up a whopping 66% compared to 2024. What's happening to the labor market is a lot of pressure on employers. They don't have the money, they don't have the liquidity to employ these people, so they're forced to cut jobs. And AI is also playing into this as well.
I feel like AI hasn't fully replaced jobs. It has helped people, but it has also made more jobs. So maybe it cut a few jobs there and here, or maybe but the real thing is that a lot of jobs are still available in the market.
Massive organizations are starting to realize that they can use AI instead of employing people and cut their costs down to a quarter of what they were previously. So of course, a lot of these companies who are solely focused on profits, because that's what they have to do to appeal to their shareholders, are doing this. If they're not doing this, they're not being a responsible business. But this is going to vastly change the way that the economy works as a whole. And this could potentially create a larger wealth disparity if not managed correctly. So we're going to hope that something is done about this. But what's even more insane is that in 5 days, the BLS is set to revise U.S. job numbers for the 12 months ending March 2025. And according to Goldman Sachs, a downward revision of up to 950,000 jobs is coming. This would be the biggest downward revision since 2010.
I don't even feel like, when we saw 2021, that was a real crisis because that's when jobs were actually unavailable. But now we're finally seeing, this is just a small bump, like it's just a 1 month, one-off basis. So this will not be the same scenario as 2021. There's actually way easier to get jobs, right? Unemployment rate is at all-time low in crypto history. Like crypto has never been fully like this positive, like in a full-on bull market, like bull market.
In summary, the situation that we're currently encountering is far worse than we previously thought. And once the Fed gets this data, they literally cannot not cut rates. If they don't cut rates, this probably is only going to expedite from here, and it's going to get much worse.
I feel like that they're cutting rates is almost like a 99% chance for me. Like we've been waiting for rate cuts for a long time. It's definitely going to happen in my opinion.
Rates are far too high. Jobs are being lost left, right, and center. Companies, whether that's small, medium business or large corporations, desperately need more liquidity in the markets in order for them to operate and, of course, be profitable. So the Fed is going to do this. They have to do this at this point. If these numbers indeed are revised the way that Goldman Sachs is saying they're going to be, they have to. They simply have to. It's really that simple. So yeah, I mean, I look at the current price of XRP and I think to myself, wow, people are absolutely idiotic not to be buying these dips, in my own opinion. Anyways, and this is great. This is so amazing for me and my community because we've been able to consistently buy these lows when we're trading around 280 to 270 where we've been for the last little while here. And we've consistently been buying every single red day. And basically, when this all starts to play out and come to...
So just being at $2.8 is still very much hype levels because that means the whales are still buying above 2.5. As I told you guys, as long as we are above 2.5, I'm not too worried about that.
Fruition. I mean, it's literally as clear as day what has historically happened the last 10 times. Yeah. We've experienced anything remotely similar to this. The Fed cuts rates, more liquidity comes in, markets go up. And it's not going to happen the moment the Fed cuts rates. It's not going to happen the moment we all expect it to happen, but it'll happen eventually. And if you're buying at a point in time where people are being overly bearish on the market with all of these positive things that are in the works, I think you're going to do pretty well. That's just my own 2 cents, though.
I agree with that. I wouldn't be too afraid about this rate cuts we have, like rate cuts or anything. You just let the market take its course, the ETFs come out. It's going to work out fine.
And that's exactly what my indicator thinks too. My trading indicator has quite...
So yeah, you guys get the idea. These rate cut jobs are not that bad. Even if we lose ton of jobs, tons are still in demand. So literally when people were saying, this is insane, this is just a one-time thing because I feel like Trump fired a lot of people. I didn't check the news too much on that. But it's not going to affect the XRP at all. We are entering the wildest stage of this XRP cycle, though. Raoul Paul, which is also a billionaire, has been talking about this. The wildest stage of the XRP cycle. Basically, he's calling the banana zone, or Tom Lee is calling it the phase 3, which are the new cycles of people rallying up to push XRP to all-time highs.
Growth goes lower, debt growth keeps ballooning, and you have to keep refinancing all of this debt because there's not enough growth to grow your way out of the debt-based economy. But things started changing at the margin and really accelerated over COVID. Firstly, Amazon, I think, now employs more robots than it does humans.
We are currently on...
That's because of the AI super hype, basically. There's going to be a big plan for XRP holders. Like they're talking about AI and all this future stuff coming in. This is very much possible. AI could replace jobs, but it's not going to replace your job. It's just going to create extra jobs, more like into programming, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not too worried about that just yet.
So the rise of the robots is just starting. We're seeing Tesla with its Optimus robot. We're seeing Figure. We're seeing Boston.
These all robots are basically made to raise productivity, so people can do their own tasks. Like, they're gonna be like a dishwasher. They're not gonna they could replace some parts of work, but not the full work routine yet. Maybe in 20 years.
Dynamics. We're seeing a whole bunch of robotics companies. So humanoid robots really start to replace humans because they have dexterity. So they don't have to be for single tasks. Much like machine learning was for single tasks, and AI is much broader. We're going to see multitasking robots. So that starts helping bolster the lack of humans in the population. But the robots will take longer to scale. Physical hardware, you have to manufacture it, you have to design it. We're still at early stage of this. So yes, we will see Tesla robots and others coming into, let's say, factories. In our houses, it's probably 10, 15 years away, but it's coming. Now, the big lever here is AI. AI is basically infinite human knowledge. Now, why the magic formula works is because we've charged for and created an economic system around scarcity of labor and scarcity of knowledge. So as the labor scarcity got solved by the machine age and even the Industrial Revolution, we've seen a transition to service-based economies for humans. So that's where we have adapted and moved into places that don't require our manual labor as much.
So Raoul Paul is basically saying a lot of the jobs with manual labor are going to get outsourced. That's why I feel like, XRP doing the fast transactions, even with AI, I'm not too scared that it's going to do worse for XRP. Instead, it's going to do better. What the humanity is trying to do now is basically save time by having this power of AI and power of fast transactions. So think about why these fast transactions are so important for the banks. They save people time and they raise productivity without having to wait 1, 2, 3 days. And they also save these banks fees.
Sure, there's plenty of manual labor, but it's been moving over time. Now, the issue is knowledge, whether it's simply a person working in a retail store or whether it's a lawyer, surgeon, doctor, accountant, creative designer, brand marketing, anything will soon get replaced by AI. And mainly the models are good enough now to do a lot of that, but over the next 5 or 6 years, these models are going to accelerate. Now, what's interesting is right now, we kind of assume that these models have an IQ of around 100. So they're sort of average human intelligence. But I think that's a bad way of looking at it, because it has an IQ of 100 in every topic known to humanity. So it's a polymath with an IQ of 100 in everything. Now, as these models scale and the breakthroughs come through, and they will come through in the next 12 months, 24 months, we will see the average IQ of AI go from 100 to 400 and then on to 1,000. And then some people can say,
I feel like the AI is already like a 200 IQ already. Like, and again, what can it do that a human cannot do? That's the crazy part about it, is how fast this is. You know, that AI is scaling. It also means that XRP will go up, because a lot of their transactions, a lot of their problems that the employees are having with writing the code, once it like goes to 400 or 1000 IQ, AI will literally be able to help the developers brainstorm to develop these fast transactions to make XRP go worldwide. That's what's happening right now. A lot of these developers are using AI technology to learn how to make these blockchains faster and stronger. The thing is, you know, right now, AI can only guide them. In the future, it's going to have so much data, it can write the technology for them, and the developers will just have to basically solve it.
onto 1 million as this can compute. So 1 million times the intelligence of a human is a system that we don't understand. And I don't want to go into the singularity about what that all means. It's the economic singularity that I think is the most important to all of us and our financial futures. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about.
And so this economic singularity that Raoul Pal goes on to describe is essentially a place where there is infinite productivity, infinite scalability, because these online computing softwares and hardwares and robotics and AI, they're all working together to essentially be self-sufficient to continue.
So guys, remember this, the more productivity we have, why is everybody talking about AI? Because the more we have productivity, so why is XRP going up so much? Is because people have gotten jobs and we are more productive. That's literally the main reason why XRP could reach $10, $20 with this AI, and more world economy could be entering. I know it sounds kind of crazy, far-fetched, but when you think about it, productivity is actually 90% of the growth for XRP. XRP delivering updates, price goes up. XRP lawsuit finished, which is kind of productivity, you know, that's also price goes up.
Continuously grow their knowledge base and to serve humans even better. They essentially replace the service industry with robotics and AI, which is insane, but it seems more and more realistic when you start to look at how robotics is advancing so incredibly quickly in all the most advanced economies in the world, such as China, the United States, and some parts of Europe as well. You see AI and robotics, like a real life robot that's able to do backflips, do parkour courses, able to serve people ice cream. These are things that are happening in America and China today. And so when you think about it, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, companies as we know them now will be drastically different, and so will the financial framework as well. If we can optimize absolutely everything to this same degree and this same scale, I mean, a lot of us realistically, seemingly, would just be able to enjoy our lives and not have to worry really about labor because everything is served to us. Now, that could be dystopian, that could be scary, but the fact of the matter...
I feel like this is going to be 10 years, but even in 5 years, XRP in the next cycle is going to have some sort of like, we're already going in real world assets. We're trying to go everything digital. That's where the big money is.
Remains. Cryptocurrency is going to be an integral part of that because we are going to need unverifiable, undisputable on-chain evidence for every single type of record and transaction for this world to operate in a way that we are happy with.
The biggest thing about it is we are seeing this right now with XRP, basically that they need a technology. All the governments, all the banks, they use crypto because they need the technology. And that's why XRP is really going to probably stay, in my opinion, with this lawsuit being over for a long time.
Then minimizes fraud and concerns around those types of things. And so, yeah, I think that XRP is going to be a huge part of that. I think Bitcoin is going to be a big part of that. I think Ethereum are all going to be massive parts of that. And that's precisely why I am trading all of these cryptocurrencies around this type of information. Every single day, I'm using my Crusader signal and I'm updating my people in my crypto Crusader.
So yeah, you get a pretty clear idea of what's happening. Is productivity going up, which I predict will go up in the future. We might be seeing drop, in my personal opinion, in 2026, but have no crystal ball. But yeah, I'm just realistic on this channel. That's why we have like viewers here, is because a lot of people are expecting XRP will go up, up, up. And this has happened. This has definitely happened for the last 1 month, but it might need like a few years or a few months to recover. So once that productivity goes up, XRP will still be building. So if you hold any XRP, watch this before Friday. Haven't seen this one yet.
To ensure rate cuts are coming from the Federal Reserve this month in September.
So yeah, September rate cuts have been something that has been a lot of eyes on, but there's going to be a lot more rate cut dates. We will get this one. I feel like it's priced in at this point.
Of 2025. Now, in today's video, we're going to highlight what to look forward to when the jobs report comes out in terms of what the Feds will kind of comprehend based off that report, and why I think the market is about to prepare for a significant bull run starting from the moment the rate cuts begin, mid-September going into end of September, then October all the way through the end of 2025. But just remember, as always, never financial advice. Just trying to put you guys on the plays that I'm in. If you're new around here, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to the channel. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The market is pulling back today.
So yeah, September has always been known to be a bit more shaky, especially for XRP and all either altcoins. It is not too worrying for me because we are kind of expecting months like these. We cannot have only positive months. And it's also September is usually when people take their profit to return back later. That's literally what happens. People take their profit when XRP and all cryptos go super up.
Again, we had a really nice rally yesterday during market open, and basically that entire 8-hour period, Bitcoin hovered above 112K for a little while, 112.5, and now everything has pretty much retraced, especially World Liberty 5, which is Trump's team's coin, seeing a lot of sell-off happening over there. But we're here to talk about XRP and why I am extremely bullish going into tomorrow's news. Now, update for position, we're currently down about 9.24% on our position for XRP.
So yeah, he's holding like today's gains 300, balance $15,000 of XRP. So yeah, being that down isn't too scary for me. Like fear and greed index at 44%. I feel like when you look at a weekly basis, of course, that's normal to go down, right? People are saying the price is going down. Yeah, if you're looking at like 1 week basis, now go to a 1 year chart. And months go by fast. And then we have interest rate cuts, which might boost XRP a bit, but not really that much.
Specifically. This is from Virginia EDU.
In my opinion, yeah.
Foster. Friday's job report could determine whether the Federal Reserve finally cut interest rates. The monthly release from the Bureau of Labor Statistics is one of the most closely watched economic indicators for the U.S. economy, and this week's numbers arrive shortly before the Federal Open Market Committee, or the FOMC meeting, which is scheduled for September 16th through the 17th, which again, it's only 12 days away. While Federal Chair Jerome Powell's Jackson Hole speech raised expectations for a September rate cut, he stressed the decision hinges on seeing the latest jobs reports and inflation data, because what their concerns were during the Jackson Hole meeting was inflation is still not where they want it to be at that 2% goal or a little bit above. Especially after PPI numbers came out, there was a lot of fear in the market, and that's why we saw a big sell-off from a new all-time high for Bitcoin. But most importantly, even though the Feds do look at inflation, they also look at how is the economy. And one of the indicators they look at is the jobs reports. How many people are seeking employment versus how many people are actually currently employed. There are signs that the labor market is weakening, and July's report showed employers added 73,000 jobs, the weakest gains in years, while revisions erased more than 250,000 positions from the months of May and June. The unemployment rate rose to 4.2%, and the labor force continued to shrink. Together, the figures raised doubts about the labor market's resilience at a moment when inflation remains stuck above the federal's 2% target.
So yeah, that's what they want to improve for some time and what they have been really waiting for a long time. But this is what people have been kind of expecting now and waiting for a year. And that's why I feel it really won't change the prices that much as people think. For this exact reason. It needs to go down anyway. The price might just correct itself back to the prices it should be with the inflation, that is.
Again, with everything being said and the direction we're heading is they would rather see, instead of the market in terms of jobs going to zero, not having a strong labor market at all, they would rather lowest interest rates, which then gets businesses kind of bailed out in a sense because it helps them afford, refinance, do what they have to do to get more people into their doors as employees.
Wouldn't it also be better for real estate because you get interest rates lower, which means you're getting like a loan easier? Instead of paying like 5%, you pay like 2%. And if you do like $5-10 million, $100 million loan, whatever these billionaires do, it probably pays off long term to keep building it. It keeps the economy more productive if you think of it that way.
But they've held rates steady for such a long time now at an increased rate that a lot of businesses did foreclose. A lot of businesses aren't able to transact because they're just not able to leverage. And that's how a lot of these businesses utilize financials in the United States. They take money that isn't theirs or they use borrowing power to then increase their businesses, increase their employee workforce, and more thereover. Inflation is also a worry. The core personal consumption expenditures price index, which includes food and energy in the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, showed that the core...
So I feel like people are going to be spending a lot Q4, and then 2026, people will be buying crypto less, in my prediction, because, again, this is my personal prediction. It's not financial advice. But what happens is people spend a lot more for Christmas, and then they stop spending in January, February, March, including like gifts for themselves, like crypto, like buying themselves a crypto gift as an investment. That's what happens on your end.
Inflation ran to 2.9% seasonally adjusted annual rate back in July. The reading met estimates, but it's higher than the month of June. To unpack what's behind the numbers, and then you can kind of look more into this report. What I want to make sure everybody understands and realizes is this economy is very, very tricky. And that's why traders are so confused. Because one thing is telling the Feds to, yes, reduce rates because of the labor markets. But they're also basically telling them hold rates steady where they're at and maybe even increase rates to a certain extent because of where inflation is. You're in this very bimodal distribution of economics where it makes the macro climate so confusing. And that's why people are just...
I don't think they will increase rates. Like, people have been calling for rate cuts. There's no reason to increase them. They're already super, super high. And no change. He literally hinted he's going to do rate cuts. So I don't know why that would happen. It's a very clear choice with how the economy is to actually cut the rates, to increase the economy.
So hesitant. And of course, with what's happening over in the political end with Donald Trump and his volatility, especially with the things that he's mentioning and saying, just about everything, whether it's the war in Ukraine and Russia, what's happening in the Middle East with Palestine and Israel, whatever it might be, we just continue to see this lack of abilities of just giving us some kind of clear runway forward, and tariffs, spooking the market time and time again. And at this point, people are just calling it whatever and basically ignoring anytime we hear tariff tweets or tariff.
I mean, the tariffs have obviously been good for the economy. Trump got better rates. Trump got more money out of it, which is another video I'm going to be making. But it's very clear that a lot of the news that people are afraid of and saying, okay, it's over for crypto because of this. It was nothing. It was really like the economy right now, the productivity is super high. Nothing can stop this. At least everything is pointing out to another indicator, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Coming on the Truth Social platform. Benjamin Cohen talked about initial claims today. The actual was 237,000, 7,000 more initial claims than the estimated, and prior, again, for unemployment claims, 229K.
So it's not that big of a change, 8,000 people.
Is from ADP. So again, the labor force is weakening more than expectations. But when it comes to a technical analysis of the cryptocurrency market, you guys know I love the take from Crypto Currently, because he's been spot on basically this whole year. BTC is stuck between two of its trading ranges. We are below the 112K low of our most recent range. And yes, we are above the 109K high of our old range. And any chop here is noise until we enter either range. I'm expecting a reclaim to the upside. So again, market is shaking. Nobody is doubting that. Investor sentiment is extremely fearful, more so than the fear and greed index basically telling us that we're neutral.
I mean, I don't agree with that. I just feel like, you know, if you look at the market data, September will always be super, super down anyway. So I'm not too fearful. And September is obviously like this always. Historically speaking, every 4 years, September after rate cuts, Ethereum is down, Bitcoin is down, XRP is down. We haven't had a history after the, not rate cuts, but yeah, actually after the rate cuts, after the halving, where Septembers were bearish. So this is why I'm not afraid.
No apparent transparent information that is seen from the market's perspective. But when everybody's overly excited and overly hyped, that's a sign that we're entering a top signal. And when everyone is fearful, spooked, and scared, that's the time that we need to start looking at what position am I going to double down into. Everything is down on the week, so you're getting in at a discount. Bitcoin is down 10%. Or 2%. We're seeing XRP down 6% on the week. Solana down.
I mean, Bitcoin was $20,000 and nobody wanted to buy it. XRP was 10 cents. Nobody wanted to buy it. So this is like very easy to say, but it's very hard to predict when crypto is going to be like all-time high and when it's going to be all-time low. A lot of people say, yeah, just buy when it's the top, bro. And it's not that easy. XRP, nobody predicted it would be at $3. But yeah, XRP new price calculator. Brad Garlinghouse just showed something major to us, guys. XRP futures were the fastest to ever hit 1 billion open interest, according to CME. XRP future contracts, which I guess Korea has a lot of trading volume, hit 1 billion in open interests. It just shows you how much volume and how much hype there is for XRP, potentially even more than Bitcoin right now, which shows you that XRP has a major, major advantage over anyone else.
Commented on the CME listing XRP futures contracts, and those XRP futures contracts being the fastest ever growing futures contract on the CME. This is extremely exciting, and it's important to realize that there's been Solana futures, Bitcoin futures, Ethereum futures, and what we're seeing is XRP is the fastest growing futures contract. Now, one of the things I've tried to make clear on this channel is a lot of things that happen in crypto aren't always represented in the prices of the cryptocurrency assets. That's because CME doesn't settle to spot XRP, or there's a lot of XRP dealt OTC via Ripple and these other people. So I want to start out this video and really paint the picture.
So yeah, seems like that XRP is basically the winner of both Ethereum. It has more gains than Ethereum, and it has more gains than Bitcoin. Now, can this be sustained? Yes and no, people are saying. Like Benjamin is saying to watch out because XRP is getting super, super high. And it's going to be very hard to push past $4 this cycle is what he's saying based on historical data. But on the other hand, we also have the lawsuit over. So I want to see how it really plays out.
For the XRP institutional adoption we're going to see, and then get into the XRP market cap multiplier, because guys, I am telling you, when you see the inputs of this market cap multiplier, your jaw is going to hit the floor with just...
So yeah, this is just these calculators. The issue is you can never predict if we're going to get rate cuts, bull runs. You can never predict that. And that's why a lot of people are not so happy about, you know, these market multipliers, because there's no real data on them yet. There's no data that could happen. It doesn't predict that. With power of AI, that would definitely be a big thing, though.
XRP futures contracts are actually the fastest ever growing futures contract on the CME.
Now, that's a good
This
good
is
thing.
extremely exciting, because this essentially means that the institutional demand for XRP is through the roof. One of the things that I've tried to make extremely clear on this channel is financial institutions aren't necessarily going to be buying spot XRP on places like Uphold or places like Coinbase, right? They require a different infrastructure, an institutional grade infrastructure. And for the longest time, this institutional infrastructure has really been MIA from the cryptocurrency market. But things like the CME coming in and providing futures contracts allows financial institutions to be able to get involved with crypto in a way that they feel comfortable with. What we're seeing is the CME, which is probably the most non-retail market out there, is seeing an explosion of interest greater than Bitcoin, greater than Solana, greater than Ethereum in XRP. Now, guys, the amount of money we're talking about here is going to be massive. We talked about the XRP ETFs that are around the corner, probably bringing in close to $8 to $9 billion of inflow. And with what we're seeing on the CME data right here, I would not be surprised if the XRP ETFs were some of the most successful ETFs to ever hit the market. The interest is huge, and that's because people understand XRP at a level they don't understand these other digital assets. XRP is a clear use case, and what's so important about that is it aligns XRP with the mindset of the investors. People are looking for something that makes sense to them. And when you go to these traditional institutions, they're used to investing in stocks and companies that are providing real world value and economic output. What XRP is doing perfectly aligns with what these people are used to. Direct utility, something that makes sense to them, something that they can tangibly see and understand the power of this asset.
That's the thing with crypto is we have more technology out there. We have more competition. Crypto wasn't really a big thing back 4 years ago because most of it was meme coins. Now we are seeing that utility is what the main adoption is, what really makes the big companies interest, not just the small fish, the small traders. What really makes companies look into crypto is these, utilities that are backed.
I have a feeling we are going to continue to see huge amounts of institutional adoption simply based off the speculation behind XRP. A lot of people are going to need to be allocated to the cryptocurrency asset class, and they're going to be looking for something that makes sense to them. There's no better digital asset than XRP, and what we're seeing in the futures contracts is that the people buying it certainly agree. I want to move on, though, and talk about one other thing before we get into the market cap calculator, and that's a very interesting post being put out by Hugo Filion. He was actually responding to someone who was talking about L2s based on Ethereum, and I could not agree with Hugo more here. This is one of the reasons why XRP was built to be one of the best blockchains in the cryptocurrency space. It didn't copy what everyone else was doing. It didn't try to stay ahead of trends like NFTs and meme coins. Instead, it simply focused on building a fast, efficient chain built for institutional finance. Hugo said the entire concept of an L2 is kind of idiotic. Anything that becomes successfully useful.
I feel like the issue with these L2 chains was the biggest problem that there ever was is very simply that they are expensive. They are very expensive to maintain. They're very expensive to handle, and they're trying to make them cheaper. But this is where really XRP wins. They're putting lots of money in technology because they know the banks want to use it, not just the general mainstream audience. Because like the general people will just use the banks instead, right? They have no problem using the banks. But right now, XRP is trying to at least offer this technology to the banks, which makes the transactions much, much cheaper.
Or popular will always become an L1. And that's because that's where the value accrual is. The entire Ethereum roadmap is dead. In fact, it was dead on arrival. Anyone trying to rehash L2/side chains is a sucker or worse. Essentially, what Hugo is pointing at is the whole Ethereum model doesn't make any sense. If you're going to build a powerful application, right, a powerful use case for cryptocurrency, why would you issue it on a blockchain like Ethereum where essentially nothing works? It's slow and inefficient. Why would you even want to use another blockchain that you're limited based off the functionality of that blockchain and the security of the blockchain if you could just spin up your own blockchain? This has always been the mindset of the XRP ledger. Everything is layer one. Issue an asset, it's a layer one asset. These are things that are extremely powerful and shows that the Ripple team was way ahead of the crowd when it came to designing these future financial applications. While the entire industry focused on putting their chain on Ethereum, Ripple said, you know what? The XRP ledger is going to be its own native one. It's going to have smart contracts built into the code. It's going to be a functional, financial system.
That's the thing. They are offering tools. They're not offering the coin to these banks. Again, they're distancing themselves from crypto in general. And what they are doing is they are offering tools for crypto itself.
For the largest financial institutions on earth, and we're not going to bloat it with all these useless features. What we are currently watching, in my opinion, is a mass migration away from chains built on Ethereum. Because ultimately, it's good for a short amount of time, but the second your application becomes any kind of useful or adopted, ultimately, Ethereum just doesn't have what you need anymore and you have to move it off. This is a huge downside of the Ethereum ecosystem, and I don't think it's being talked about enough. I think there are a lot of catalysts, in my opinion, that are going to cause a mass migration away from Ethereum. This is one of them, but it shows that not only alongside the narratives and the speculation into an asset like XRP, what we're seeing on the actual use case, what we're seeing on people actually building on these chains, XRP sits in a category of its own. With that said, though, I want to finish this video off with a big thing that I know a lot of people are looking forward to, and that is the XRP market cap multiplier. Guys, this has been an extremely interesting story since the beginning. Essentially, this entire story starts with the fact that every net dollar invested into XRP doesn't equal $1 increased on XRP's market cap. And a lot of you probably know that XRP's market cap is in the $150 billion range, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's how much money is invested in XRP. Essentially, every single time a dollar comes into the XRP ecosystem, the XRP market cap increases by an amount of 150 to a...
So yeah, this is where the ETFs really get helpful, because this is where the ETFs, like the inflows, are going to be the big thing. The buy order size could easily reach 10, 20, 50 million, 100 million a day. Now, I don't think it's going to reach 1 billion a day. Maybe it's going to reach 1 billion monthly. There's also obviously going to be outflows from that. So let's say even 200 million is, this calculator is going to be the biggest increase we can ever see. Now, the multiplier of 178, I don't feel like this will work, because the issue is, for the market cap, you're also going to have people selling this, right? If the price would stay just like that, nobody would sell, the price would go up. There's definitely going to be people selling once the ETFs drop.
1000x that. That means with just a couple $1 million invested into XRP, you could get some astronomically high prices of XRP and an astronomically high price for XRP's market cap. But I want to show you this market cap multiplier recently created and show you a couple simulations on what happens when these large financial institutions start coming in with their spot ETFs and start purchasing spot XRP. This is going through the market cap multiplier right now. And what we can see right here is a 430 million XRP buy would lead to a market cap multiplier increase of 969x. Guys, this alone would be about 593 billion added to XRP's market cap, or a $10 XRP. Now, 430 million probably sounds like a lot of money, but guys, it's peanuts for the financial industry. We're talking about an industry that moves trillions and quadrillions of dollars. What we're seeing is a single person with a $430 million buy, or a small institution, could easily get XRP's market cap.
I think that's a big thing. Big thing that nobody talks about is this one. We don't even know the good news yet. That's the thing. We don't know the full glory, basically, of what all the good news we could get is going to be happening. And that's what I'm excited for. Are we going to get 1000x? I mean, it's theory, it's possible, but the issue with these calculators, as I said, you're not 100% sure if this will happen or not. If we really will get 1000x, because if we get 1000x, there will be a lot of selling. So there could be only a 3x here. There's as many as there inflows, there's also so many outflows.
And price to the $10 region.
And then we would actually have to get $400 million into XRP as well, which isn't that hard.
Let's see what happens when we ultimately get to something like a $1 billion buy. Well, a $2 billion buy would put us at about a $35 XRP, or a $2.1 trillion market cap. Now, do I think any one person is going to be doing a $2 billion buy? No, probably not a single person, at least not now, but small institutions? Absolutely. ETFs? JP Morgan themselves said 5 to 10 billion invested into XRP in the first year. So let's get larger. Let's see what happens if we go to something like a 2.5 or a $7 billion investment into XRP. Once again, this is pushing the top end of what we'd probably see from the spot ETFs off rip. But even that alone is indicating an $80 XRP. Now, what we know is not all this money is going to come from one financial institution. What we know is it's not all going to come from ETFs. It's not all going to come from futures. It's going to come from a lot of different places. But the point is $7 billion isn't an earth-shattering amount of money for what we're talking about here. We are talking about the new rails, a brand new financial system in an emerging asset class. Something that could easily get inflows in the hundreds of billions of dollars one day. This just lets you know that these prices of XRP people throwing around in the triple and quadruple digits really aren't that crazy. Is it going to take XRP being successful? Is it going to take a lot of money coming in? Is it going to take XRP really pursuing its main goal of becoming the future financial system? Absolutely. If you think those things are possible, guys, the math seems to be telling us that we could 100% see these astronomically high prices for XRP. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this.
I definitely think this will happen. Like, there is a lot of potential here where XRP could perform good. Like, there is so many good news that we just need like 1, 2, or 3 for this to really change forever, right? And if we use this XRP calculator, for example, now you have like a lot of sell orders here. You can play with it, but I wouldn't look too much at the calculators, because even if we get this type of multipliers, this is what people are saying, this is just in theory. Like, a lot of people forget to say that this is just a thing that will happen in theory if nobody starts to sell their XRP. And I don't think that is physically possible. This didn't even happen with Bitcoin. So just keep that in mind, guys. These are not that, realistic, but they are a nice thing to see. Like, how high can XRP go? I think people are underestimating XRP as they did Bitcoin. So let's take a look at, you need 500 XRP. Not this one, actually. We need to look at this one. You have until October. The Fed is about to make XRP holders very rich. This is the one I've been looking for.
I get it. We want XRP to pump up. And yes, it has gotten some nice price action over the last day and a half or so. Amazing. But guys, it's what's 3 months down the line from now, which is where the true money is made, at least in my point of view. And so that's exactly what...
So yeah, the Fed governor says he favors multiple interest rate cuts. I mean, multiple interest rate cuts is what we need right now to see XRP perform better. The more interest rate cuts we have, guys, the more the prices improve. So if we get like 3, 4 interest rate cuts, that's where it really could make a big difference for these holders.
I want to talk about here. So first and foremost, we want to talk about what the Fed is talking about here and why they're saying it so that we can understand how the markets will react. And so this is what the Fed's saying. Fed Governor Waller has come out and says that he favors multiple cuts in the coming months. Multiple cuts. He's not just saying one, he's saying multiple, 2, 3, maybe even 4. Unlikely, but possible. If we do get 2 to 3 rate cuts before the end of the year here, I gotta say, it's gonna be crazy for markets, unlike anything ever seen before. When the world's leading economy starts printing money, the strongest currency in the world, the most used currency in the world, starts printing, all boats rise. And we're not just talking about XRP here. We're also talking about all other cryptocurrencies. We're talking about stocks. We're talking about gold. We're talking about real estate. Literally everything. There is such a strong correlation. But the thing that does the best during these points of time are stores of value, alternatives to the US dollar, things that are impervious to, resistant to, or grow larger than other assets that are currently fighting inflation. Gold is a great example, and that's why I'm going to be talking about.
I feel like gold, the issue is it's very hard to trade. There's going to be more and more of people looking into like fast payment transfers, fast payment platforms. That's where the real money comes in, right? So gold is cool as a store of value, but that's what they're trying to replace Bitcoin with. Collected 31 billion in tariff revenue in August. I feel like that's a pretty good revenue, right? The thing is, it probably is a very small portion of the revenue the US government brings in anyway. The highest monthly total this year.
Record levels of tariff revenue. $31 billion that is collected from the US government in August alone. The number, as you can see, has been going up consecutively over the last few months here. I mean, every single month is just higher, 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 and higher. Inflation is not completely under control. It is a little bit higher than expectations, but so is the unemployment rate. And the number one mandate for the Fed is not inflation, it is unemployment. And so this is where we really need to be paying attention to. And this is why the Fed is making statements such as the one that Fed Governor Waller made that I just covered. The number of Americans not in the labor force who currently want a job is up to 6.2 million, which is the highest since July 2021. Here is the chart featuring this data. Now, if you were around at this time during 2020 and you saw this massive unemployment spike due to the fact that we were quite literally forced out of our jobs for really...
So yeah, this is 2021 and the market saw a big pump. I feel like this is because it is inflated at that time. So that time the markets were inflated. XRP tried to go to 2.7, but it didn't feel natural at all. That's why 2024, 2025 is the real pump that we were waiting for, that we deserve. And because the productivity is backing it, right? If you have super high unemployment and then you have XRP at $2.7, of course, what will the 10% who own XRP do after it pumped such a long time? They will have to sell it. Now, if productivity is really good and the unemployment is low, a lot of people will say, well, XRP is like, what, $3 now? Why should I sell it? I could just wait until 10. I have a stable income coming in. So you kind of see now why XRP is going to be changed a lot than in the past, and why I don't look at past price predictions for that.
No good reason. Then you will fully understand what the Fed is going to do. Much like in 2020, when the economy was under an immense amount of pressure due to rising unemployment, the Fed cut rates. And so when you see Waller say this, it becomes abundantly clear that the Fed is likely going to try to tackle unemployment by cutting rates, much like what we saw in 2012 here, much like what we saw in 2021 here, much like what's happening currently in 2025. And the rate cuts will start small. I think it's going to start with a 25 BPS cut. Then it's going to maybe be another 25 BPS cut if unemployment still continues to rise and inflation is moderately under check. And then they might raise it even more from there. But nonetheless, they need to start doing something now because it's becoming abundantly clear that unemployment is becoming a growing concern. That means the money printer is coming back online. That means liquidity is coming into the markets, okay? This is what we've been waiting for.
So the M2 money supply is getting even better as well, which is another reason that the markets are improving. So that is the good part here. Like, look at this. Fed will blame a weak market labor for September rate cut. He's already been hinting it already in August. So a rate cut for XRP in September is good, but I wonder how. I think it's just going to be a small rate cut, and we might get another one later on.
This is tremendous. This is exactly what the doctor ordered. Now, one thing I'd absolutely need to show to you guys is gold and silver ETFs and its correlation here, because what we're starting to notice in the markets after doing a ton of backtesting and research is gold and silver are first to rise, and they do have a very strong correlation with stocks and cryptocurrency. Generally, out of all of these, crypto is the last to move, but it moves the most aggressively. And this is why if you hold XRP, me talking about gold and silver 1000% applies to you. So we can see the total holdings in gold ETFs hit a record 2,905 tons in August. The stockpile has risen by 310.
So yeah, gold ETFs, I feel like everything digitalized is going to be the future, and that's why XRP also bought the huge deal that's $200 billion, and why they have been going into real world assets. Exactly because of everything is going to be on the blockchain in the future. At least that's what they're promising us. Same time, total silver ETFs reached a record 25,000 tons. Silver ETF holdings have risen for 7 straight months, up 30,000 tons. Lease rates, the cost of borrowing silver remain elevated at 2%, far below the normal near zero level. So I really think that a lot of the younger generation is getting rid of gold and silver and ETFs, and they're going more on crypto becoming the new investment type, stocks, crypto, whatever you name it, but basically something that has a higher return at this point. They feel like they missed out on gold already, even though it increased so much just in a few months.
Into gold, silver ETFs. The price of gold is hitting new all-time highs, and it is telling the future. You can see the S&P 500 is one of the strongest bull runs in decades, up 1650 points in under 5 months, right after gold had a massive rally. Gold tells us where the markets are getting ready to go. Absolutely. When we look down here, for example, you can see that gold outperforms the S&P 500 over a 3-year plus bull run in equities. You can see, of course, is a lot more volatile during the periods of time. The S&P 500 is a lot more volatile during the down period, so you have a chance to buy an awesome dip. But if you're honestly just accumulating gold here, you're doing really well. I mean, look at this chart here, and look at the correlation here too. You see gold starts to rise, S&P follows very shortly thereafter. It's like clockwork pretty much. And here's another chart kind of showing what happens here. This is the correlation. This is a historical relationship between gold and the S&P. Gold is a safe haven asset historically, like bonds, which rises in times of uncertainty and with equity markets weakens. And then in 2022, this trend began shifting as people started piling into gold once the dollar was essentially just weakening due to the Fed printing money. People are becoming more and more educated because they're realizing that gold is probably the way to go. And a lot of
I don't think the gold is like the way to go for the younger generation, but older generations, sure. Like, who's gonna hold the dollar is definitely better than holding the dollar itself, which is crashing in value. I also feel like that the thing with gold is people are now investing in stuff like the future. So, for example, they're investing in NVIDIA because they know if they hold it for 10 years, it is going to have more technology, more backing behind it. Also, Amazon, all these stocks, they're backed by something. Now, gold is backed by the big banks, so don't get me wrong. But compare that to NVIDIA, for example, and gold, and you compare all these big stocks, obviously those are going to have way easier returns because they have some sort of a huge bank backing. I feel like gold will not really be an investment of sorts, even though it follows the same as S&P 500 index. So that's crazy to me, like how much gold goes up. The dollar is like the worst performer right now. But stocks, AI technology is what people have been banking for a long time now.
And you really think about it. And if we do know that there is an undeniable correlation between gold and the S&P 500 index during times of rising uncertainty, as we're clearly seeing here from this chart, well, it makes our lives as investors a lot easier because we know the stock market and the crypto market also have a very high correlation. So basically, we see gold is rising. We see the S&P 500 is rising. We now know that crypto is going to get us time.
You know, crypto is always a bit delayed in the stock market and the pumps. So I could definitely see that happening
very shortly thereafter. Generally, that's just the way that it works. And there's always exceptions to this, but one thing that absolutely nobody can deny is the simple fact that when monetary supply, or M2, is rising, crypto assets have about a 95% correlation with that, with about a 12-week leg, a 3-month leg, essentially. So it's a pretty clear-cut play. I will take personally a 90% probability that my assets are going to go up if the Fed does what they are.
This is the thing, yeah. Rate cuts are good. We don't know how good they're going to be, but any type of rate cuts is going to help. Maybe a lot of these are priced in, but the thing is the ETFs and the Crypto Clarity Act, it could take up to 4 years for XRP to reach like $50. 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, but in terms of like when you compare it to, unless you're really like at senior age, it really does make sense that that's what happened to crypto previously. So it could go for this track as well, especially now that it's regulated. You have until October 18th XRP moon date.
Is saying stablecoins are the future. Do they have plans with Ripple to roll out a digital pound? Let's go ahead and get into what's new and updated here in the XRP space. We also have some more information and new updates here about ETFs and how much money could possibly be coming into them. We have some updates about liquidity. Ripple has a new digital asset custody in action, 3 use cases driving institutional adoption. Let's go ahead and jump into this information. So Chad Steingraber posted this, Bank of England stating that
stablecoins are a big thing, but the one I'm really banking on is the ETFs. The ETFs have been the biggest factor for Ethereum and Bitcoin's prices to come back. So for XRP, it's gonna like double down, in my opinion. It's gonna like double or triple down in that way, because this is what XRP needs to join the big fish, that sweet juicy ETF. But of course, banks are now going for stablecoins because it's going to make them a lot of revenue.
Coins are the future of money. RL Euro is coming soon. It says Bank of England Deputy Governor Sarah Breeden said stablecoins could be moving money across borders faster and less costly than the traditional system, right? The Bank of England is preparing to launch a consultation on its revised plans for stablecoin regulation later this year.
I mean, stablecoins are going to be good because they earn from fees, but it also makes the transfer so much faster. Like, guys, do not underestimate fast transfers. Usually they're next day or something, or same day. If it's instant, imagine people will be sending and spending more money because you could instantly send it to someone. That's what really helps people to spend it. You know, you don't have to wait a day to spend something.
Softening its approach after the industry warned its initial stance was too tough. Breeden's vision for UK payments landscape is one of the multi-money mixed ecosystem where different forms of money play their own roles, maximizing utility for UK businesses and UK households. And so I wanted to see if there's an additional information here that maybe we're missing. Of course, we talked about the key context here. Stablecoins may allow more efficient and less costly international money transfers, highlighting their role as the future of money. When you have the Bank of England calling stablecoins the future of money, we should be paying attention to these statements. It'd be interesting, right? You have Ripple working with SBI to release the RLUSD in Japan, as well as a RLUSD. What would you call it? RLUSD yen backed, right? So RL yen? I don't know. What do you call it? I'm sure there's a better name for it, but you could have RL Great British Pound, GBP, right? And so I'd imagine they're trying to find a way to have all of this on one network, which would be the XRP ledger, in my opinion. The Bank of England is actively working on revised plans for regulating stablecoins and aims to gather public and industry feedback through consultation later this year in 2020.
So yeah, it's very clear the banks are doing the regulation now, and they're doubling down on everything that's going to be regulated. That's why also XRP has bought the business-to-business rail company that's 200 million. For this simple reason, because the banks are already announcing that what they're going to be doing, and Ripple wants to be the first in the line to actually offer it to them. They're probably going to be contacting these governments, which they want to, like Ripple wants to get regulated and work with them in some way.
2025, reflecting on a more accommodating stance towards tech as the technology evolves. The reference post also mentions the RL Euro, hinting at potential launches of regulated euro-denominated stablecoins. So not just pound RL pound, or maybe RL Euro as well. Remember, the Bank of France has tested the XRP ledger and often speaks very highly of the company Ripple and the XRP ledger. So you do know Ripple has friends in Europe, and I would imagine some of these central bankers talk with each other about what technology is the best and
that's exactly the thing. Everything is so connected that XRP getting all the major partnerships. So yeah, there's no volume liquidity in this project at the moment, save for Algo. That's the thing. Sometimes like some projects explode, and the other times the other projects do well. And each of these projects, you know, like HBAR, IOTA, Algorithm, Chainlink. I would think Chainlink is pretty much for PayPal and stuff like that, what they partner with. They have each their own plan on where to get that liquidity going or where to get their projects. And XRP is going to work with banks. That's their main promise, because banks have a lot of money. They have a huge problem. And I think they did that very well, which other projects do not do.
what works and what doesn't. Anyway, Ripple is known for its focus on improving global payments, partnering with financial institutions, and supporting tokenized fiat through stablecoins and CBDCs on its XRPL platform. While the Bank of England comments do not mention Ripple specifically, Ripple has historically engaged in dialogue with major central banks, including the Bank of England, about blockchain-based payment systems and interoperability. Ripple's recent business moves on ongoing work on institutional stablecoin infrastructure put it in a strong position to contribute to or benefit from any UK or European stablecoin rollouts, especially if regulatory frameworks mature in the coming months. Here is a clip about the Genius Act is causing a Cambrian explosion in the development of stablecoins. Let me play this.
The Genius Act is the biggest thing for crypto that we have been waiting for. And XRP is probably going to benefit it from more than Ethereum or Bitcoin.
And so I want to come back to the Genius Act. You mentioned some of the blow-ups and some of the potential risks that have been associated previously with stablecoin. But Genius Act how important did that become in terms of stablecoin adoption and usage and, I guess, feeling less risk in buying stablecoin?
I think that the Genius Act is causing a Cambrian explosion in development of stablecoins, usage, adoption. There were so many people sitting on the sidelines that knew that this was a superior technology, faster, cheaper, easier, no third party to pay a toll to in the middle of your transactions, but they needed that regulatory clarity to do it. And I'm talking about the biggest institutions in the world. I mean, we have Western Union saying they're going to create their own stablecoin, the Citibanks, PNCs, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all of them talking about either adopting an existing stablecoin or building their own on private networks. So I would say that now the confidence to use this superior technology is there, and nobody's afraid to do it anymore. And it really is just that much better.
Listen, if a bank or institution wanted to build a stablecoin, we've done the math. We've already done all of the research on this. It would take minimum 12 to 24 months. Longer term, maybe 3 to 4 years if you're building something from scratch. You got to figure out what you want to build. You got to bring in a team to...
That's what took XRP 15 years, right, to build this. Instead of 3 to 4 months, it took them 15 years because, these things obviously take time.
Build it, you got to develop it, you got to sandbox test it, then you got to bring in partners, then you got to grow it.
That's why XRP has no competition. It takes, tons of time to do something like that.
It takes a lot of work to do so. And this is why companies will go to Ripple, they'll go to Circle and ask to use their infrastructure or help build a stablecoin. And this is going to start, allowing banks to move forward more quickly because this has already been done again and again and again. And Ripple is going to be in the business of helping banks, governments, whatever companies create their own type of stablecoins, right? They're going to be in the infrastructure business. A lot of people talking about the countdown is on. October 18th through the 25th is when we're going to get the SEC decisions on XRP spot ETF.
So that's why I'm not expecting much for September. I'm sounding like repeating myself here, but still no BlackRock. Still no BlackRock yet, but we do have Grayscale, 21 shares, Bitwise. So I feel like this one is going to be weaker than the Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETFs, which had BlackRock behind it, which is maybe 50%, maybe 70%. We don't truly know unless we look at the data of the trading volume.
ETFs. Now, you also are getting, Solana and a bunch of other hosts of tokens. My thought on this directly is we will see people buying into upfront before the ETFs come out. I would imagine XRP will start to tick up as people bet that the SEC is going to approve this. We don't know for a fact if they are going to or not.
I am pretty sure since they delayed it, they will approve it now. This is what they've been usually doing, delaying it in the summer and approving it in October. And if they're going to approve one, they're going to approve all of them from what I learned for XRP.
But the market is probably going to bet on that it will get approved because the SEC has done everything that they can to show they are a crypto-friendly SEC. And saying no to a spot XRP product would be bad, right? We would have to go through all of the rigmarole of suing the SEC. And I don't think the SEC wants to have any of, heat on them right now. So you let me know what you think in the description, down below in the comments. Do you think they're going to pass this? Let's just get a little bit more information about how much money is under management from these companies. So Grayscale has 35 billion under management. 21 Shares has about 3.95 billion. Bitwise has about 15 billion. Wisdom Tree, 128.6 billion. Franklin Templeton, $1.62 trillion assets under management. That is the biggest one that I've seen on this list. Imagine if we get a BlackRock or a Schwab or something like that to come in with trillions under management as well. That could...
that's what I'm saying, but that's the thing. I think they're waiting for clear crypto regulation and they're playing the safe path to see if these get approved. Because it's going to take more time to file them again. It's going to take a lot of preparation. But Bitwise having 50 billion in client assets is cool. But BlackRock, is it like a trillion? Don't they have trillion? So over 1.62 trillion as of July. Like Bitwise having only 15 billion is very small compared to 1 trillion, right? The potential.
Be the catalyst that really sends this to the next level. Other spot XRP ETF players as of September 2025, institutional products are largely centered around these firms. Canary Capital, remember the CEO, Mark McClung, says he believes first 30 days spot ETFs for XRP, $5 billion. We'll have to see if he is correct. Pioneering entrant leveraging a Delaware trust model. You also have companies building XRP related trusts too. So there's a lot of demand here for the actual token. Remember, spot products are what we want. That's going to help the price go up because that'll be buying fresh XRP off the open market. So here's Ripple's new document or publication or insight. Hello, it's right in front of me. Come on.
I like that Ripple is already always releasing something, no matter how good, how bad. They're always like getting us some new updates.
Let's say digital asset custody in action. 3 use cases driving institutional adoption. Digital asset custody isn't just a back-end service. It's the confidence factor that transforms that hesitation into action. For institutions, secure and regulated digital asset custody isn't optional. It's the difference between stepping boldly into a digital future and watching opportunities slip by from the sidelines. Institutions are seeking a digital asset custody solution that delivers the same robust services and protections they've long relied on for traditional assets. Talks about
I think it's very clear that institutions need fast transfers that are cheap. Imagine sending a transfer and paying a $1 each time. If you send 1 transfer each day, like 3 transfers a day, that's $1,000.
Seamless trading access, comprehensive risk management capabilities, and security. With 10% of the world's assets expected to be
that's why they all want to use XRP. Everybody's like waiting in line.
Tokenized. By 2030, we are witnessing the construction of today's financial market infrastructure. The banks that are establishing a robust crypto custody framework now will be the first to market digital asset services, while those who wait will be left catching up. Remember,
think of like the internet being as really slow right now and be kind of outdated. Now, XRP is trying to change that. They're trying to replace everything from ground up. They realize that, you know, the internet has really developed in the last 24 years. And they're trying to improve the banking system, the internet, the system that's already 30, 40 years old, while we have seen massive improvements overall. And that's where Ripple comes in and tries to say to us, hey, we're going to fix this. We're going to fix that. Just give us some time.
Remember, banks are all going to be competing now for this business. If a bank's not offering crypto services to their customers, those customers might decide to take that money and go to somewhere where they are more welcomed. Remember, younger people more inclined to invest in the cryptocurrency market over the stock market. I think that is going to be a big institutional, divide between younger and maybe people a little bit older, my age, investing in the crypto space. What I'm saying, there's going to be a lot of demand for crypto over the next 10 to 20 years, and this is where I want to be. What does institutional grade digital asset custody look like when it's deployed at scale? It looks like Ripple Custody, enabling institutions to transform high-level digital asset potential into operational reality across 3 critical use cases: core safekeeping, stablecoin issuance, and governance. The foundation, core safekeeping, every custody strategy begins with one.
So this is more behind the scenes, but they are focusing also on treasuries, not just in tokenized real estate. I don't know how long it will take. For my opinion, maybe 1 to 3 years. But it is something that XRP is going to focus when they finish with banks. They probably have way less employees working on that. That is the banking system that they are doing right now.
Fundamental responsibility, secure storage of the private keys that unlock access to the digital assets. From tokenized real estate to treasuries to stablecoins and traditional cryptocurrencies, this core safekeeping capability is the bedrock of institutional digital asset services. For the financial institutions, this foundational capability addresses the most fundamental risk in engaging with digital assets: the permanent loss or unauthorized access of private keys that control potentially billions of dollars in assets. Demand for institutional grade security is climbing as banks lean on digital asset strategies, launch stablecoin initiatives, and serve clients who increasingly expect access to use digital assets and payments, hedging, and portfolio diversification. And with crypto assets under custody projected to reach 16 trillion by 2030, meeting the rising demand requires a...
So crypto assets under custody are projected to reach 16 trillion. That is only if crypto markets grow. Otherwise, that won't happen, right? So that's definitely true, because what what XRP's end goal basically is to have and let people just use their maybe like phone number or email to access and not lose their crypto, because, you know, crypto is a scary place. It's a risky place. And they're trying to go into that way where they can really, you know, focus on the future. Institutions build and maintain their own infrastructure, retaining complete ownership, governance, and control of data. Like, that's really what they're writing. Also, you can see here, not only for the retail investors, but they're really pushing for the institutional investors, by the way this is written. So this is where it all starts, you know, for financial institutions. So they're also going for the big money partnerships here.
Custody solution that prioritizes security while balancing utility. Institutions need a system designed for security, scalability, and compliance. That is where Ripple Custody comes in. Remember, Medico Custody and Ripple Custody are two different companies. Now, you can go to either one of those companies. I do believe Ripple probably developed some of their technology through Medico when they bought them. But for the longest time, I think people may realize thinking that Ripple Custody and Medico are the same thing, two different companies, just so you know. Software as a service, a secure, scalable cloud hosting platform for institutions to manage and store their digital assets without building their own complex infrastructure. On-premise, institutions build and maintain their own infrastructure, retaining complete ownership, governance, and control of data and processes, ideal for strict risk compliance and regulatory requirements. Listen, I'm going to leave the rest of this down below. If you want to take a look at this and read through it, please do. A lot of great information in that insight. Ripple Escrow, XRP relocked. Here's the history, 2025. This is how much XRP 1 billion was unlocked, and this is how much was relocked. Notice there's 700, 700, 700, 670. What was that 30 million?
So I'm not too sure. Like, this is escrowed, relocked, which basically means that they will not be selling this. I feel like there's no reason to sell this because they are profitable now. They had to sell XRP tokens a few years before when they weren't profitable. But now that they're finally profitable, we are like pushing towards this being a real company. Not just something that once people stop buying XRP, you know, the price will crash of XRP coin. That's why they keep relocking it. It's very obvious to me.
An extra, where did that go? And then 700 million. And then even 2024, they were locking up 800 million. So Ripple
XRP
is relocking up a lot of this crypto, even isn't spoken for. So a lot of people say, Sensei, all...
That's why they're relocking it month by month, because they decided we won't sell it. There's no need to sell it. We're making tons of money.
You know, some people believe that all the escrow is already spoken for through NDAs. Now, if that was really the case, why is Ripple relocking more than half of it back up? They're relocking 70% back every month. This XRP would be promised to other people, right? That's just how I'm looking at it. I might be, you know, you might not agree with what
I don't think this XRP is promised to other people. It's a treasury. It's in terms of like some bad scenario where they need to sell something, they sell it.
I am saying here, but this does make me believe that there isn't these NDAs and all this XRP is not, you know, it's, if it was spoken for, the companies that bought it would have asked for it, right? Why would they have Ripple continuing to hold it in escrow where they can't access it? Because once they relock it, it's relocked for the next like 3 or 4 years. I don't know, man. Massive XRP moves alert. So here's some massive XRP that was moved around the last few days. This is September 3rd, today's date. This will come out on the 4th. Massive XRP moves, 200 million XRP, 550.
Unlocked at Ripple, unlocked at unknown wallet, unlocked at locked. This is very normal transactions, 500 million. I don't think they will sell 800 million of their own tokens. A lot of people were afraid about that, but this is just very normal procedures I think they have.
3 million, 300 million XRP, 830 million unlocked at Ripple, 500 million unlocked from unknown wallet, 1.38 billion. Imagine 500 million XRP. Oh my goodness. And then you have 400 million locked at Ripple, 300 million locked at Ripple, 200 million and plus 300 million XRP moved from unknown wallets to Ripple. Man, people want Ripple, hold my XRP, please. Wait, it's $1 billion. Hold it. What does this all mean? The sudden surge in large XRP unlocks, relocking and whale transfer alerts likely signals strategic liquidity management by Ripple and active positioning by major.
So they're basically locking it because there's no reason to sell it.
Holders, often in anticipation of an institutional adoption, heightened utility, and upcoming market events. Ripple routinely unlocks 1 billion XRP from escrow each month, but typically relocks 70% to limit net supply increases. Only about 0.05% of total XRP supply was effectively added into circulation. This controlled supply approach aims to avoid market shock and stabilize prices, aligning with Ripple's goals of predictable liquidity for cross-border payments and institutional use. It does talk about whale and unknown wallet movement. If you want to like pause the screen, I'll try to link this below for you. But
I think it's pretty clear that this is not from whales, it's from them. And they are pretty much very spoken on what it is. This is the treasury that they have for XRP. A lot of people are saying, what if they sell 700 million? First of all, there's not 700 million in the XRP. So if somebody tries to sell 700 million, maybe he only gets 40 million out of it or 50 million out of the liquidity. So you cannot do that. And secondly, they own this in case of worst case scenario or to sell it privately. They've done that in the past. They sold these tokens at slightly discounted rates, maybe to pay for the lawsuit and stuff like that.
If you want to pause the screen and read through it, please do. I'm just not gonna. Digital asset investor and digital perspectives. Man, these guys like love each other. Bitcoin, 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 Ethereum, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin. If you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes accepted as the truth. Joseph.
Yeah, but XRP has been 400% up this year, which I said it has adjusted its price. So yeah, it's a pretty clear idea of what's happening.
Goebbels. I don't know. Let's ask Lexi. Okay. I don't know if we should be quoting that, but all good, man. Whatever you want to do. Anyways, Bitcoin, XRP, and Ethereum. XRP trailing 12-month return. What are people posting on X? Jim Thorne predict.
That's why I avoid X, because there's so much crazy stuff, you know, like people post. But the only thing that you should take out of this is not anything of here above. The thing I'm thinking here is that these are obviously way bigger cryptos. So when XRP adjusted itself, it had way more news, way bigger community right now than even Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is not, retail isn't fully back yet. And for this, XRP has won this year. It has won, got most people as well. So it's definitely a clear winner, and that's what I'm saying. Even if you combine these two, XRP is like double up. It's worth more than XRP and Bitcoin this year. But Bitcoin and XRP, Bitcoin and Ethereum, my bad, not XRP, have had gains past years as well, while XRP was down. So this can change. Don't take this at face of value.
Quoting that, but all good, man. Whatever you want. This and end it.
There's going to be liquidity and people realize that, you know, the market is going to go higher and there's risk assets. And then, Charles, and I think you've been talking about this for a period of time, is Wall Street sold the bottom. Wall Street is underexposed. And so like in 09 or 03, we're going to have a massive catch-up trade between now and the first quarter of 2026. And so, yes, AI is great, but at the same point in time, small cap, retail, home builders, everything is going to have a massive catch-up trade. And so what I would be suggesting your listeners to do, or your viewers to do, is expect the breadth in the market to increase over the next 4 to 6 months.
Guys, listen, in history, if we look back in history, rates usually drop. They start printing money, QE. It's time to get into risk assets. That's just what I've seen, you know, looking back at different historic times when we've done certain things like this. But do realize that eventually, when you start printing money and inflation is already rising, that will catch up to us in 2026 sometime.
That's what I've been telling you guys. 2026, don't expect too much. 2025, you can have your hopes up, at least in my opinion. And I'm still going to be here 2026, but it's going to be a bumpy market. Big XRP move today, though. Let me tell you what a whale did. Big XRP move is what I need.
If you are holding XRP, I have a massive breaking news update for you all. With the recent data, it is confirming rate cuts are literally about 100% likely to take place this month, which is very, very bullish. We have so much to talk about. XRP is on the very edge and precipice of a massive breakout. In this video, we're going to be talking about it and much more. So make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up and stick around, guys. You need to see what I'm talking about. So for the very first time in weeks, Bitcoin, as you can see, none of these highs were tested. We have not made a higher high, but today we've tested this high and this high. We've taken it.
So yeah, XRP has been down for some time. That is because Septembers are usually the months when people take their profits. And I'm expecting this to drag out until October, perhaps early October.
This video is for educational purposes. It is not financial advice. But every single time XRP does this, it doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen, but every single time we form this similar type of pattern for XRP, we get a massive breakout. And if XRP follows this exact pattern, which is literally following exactly right now.
So yeah, these patterns in the past, I don't know if they will repeat, but the important factor here is just consolidating before it reaches a new high. And usually historically, Octobers are the way to see more gains, and we're still on track. Even though I said if we go below $3, we should be scared, I didn't mean exactly $3 or 2.99. It can be anything above 2.5 or 2.4. As long as it doesn't break very heavily, that's what more important. If it goes like down 30% in one day, that's going to be way more worrying than if it like starts following down in, you know, these ranges. It's trying to find a new low until it goes back up.
We are going to see a very similar move, which is going to take us to close to $4.50 for XRP. Let me know if you guys are bullish on XRP in the comments below. Let me know your price predictions if you guys agree with this. But also make sure you join my community where you can...
So yeah, you get a pretty clear idea of what's happening here.
XRP is looking very, very bullish. Bitcoin has reclaimed this support, which is something that takes place during a bullish reversal. And if you take a look at the stock market, the S&P 500, we are at all-time highs. So yesterday we broke all-time highs, and today, again, we are pumping. I stressed yesterday that the stock market was pumping and cryptos were dumping for nothing. And that's just manipulation. Whenever you see the stock market pumping, the dollar is crashing, everything is looking very, very bullish, but cryptos are for some weird reason going down. I always buy the dip, I always long it. I still continue to remain bullish. Also, you guys, Sniper Cloud.
So yeah, where's XRP going from here? I feel like this will prolong itself until we see a brand new move towards highs in October, especially if the news for the ETFs goes good. That's going to be where the main volume is, especially in the Korean markets. If we get XRP ETFs there as well in the future, XRP Korean markets are getting big, but October, we're just waiting for those key moments. You know, we can't really do much more than just wait a bit more. What it is, like 24 days till October, it's not that far. It's almost over. But a huge move for XRP is also incoming, if you guys did not know, which is what I'm really excited for. Even the unemployment rate rising to 4.3% doesn't scare me that much because it's still way below the 10% we used to see. And there's actually big whales that were buying XRP at $3, so they're down a few million. Like they're down 300,000 because they bought it at exactly $3 when I was looking at analytics. But a lot of these whales are still going 50-50 on it. While like some people are selling, it's still looking very positive.
We see a massive pump, which I do believe is potentially coming this month or within about 30 days by the very latest. In this video, we're going to be talking about XRP, the crypto market, where it is headed. There are some surprising details that we need to talk about, so make sure you guys stick around to the end of this video. As you can see, XRP has been consolidating for nearly 2 months in this bull flag pattern. Every single time XRP has a similar consolidation in the same exact pattern, we always break out of a massive move. Look, literally the same exact fractal is playing out. We have support held here, followed by a take out of the bottom support. So they take out the liquidity, and then soon after, we literally start pumping days after. We could see a very similar move as this breakout here. If we measure this breakout, put it at the breakout site, this will put us around $5.
So I have been saying this over and over again, but again, guys, at $4, there's a very big resistance, a very big wall of sellers. So we have to push over $3.8, which we're going to be building a new resistance. So remember, guys, $3.8 is going to be the big problem for XRP before anything changes. Don't forget that, because it's not going to be as easy to get to $4.5 if we don't get those ETFs right. That's what a lot of people are waiting for.
Let me know if you guys are in alignment with this. Do you guys think this is going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And what is your price prediction for this particular breakout? Let me know in the comments below right now. I also just developed a new indicator that you guys can try today for free at algosniper.com. This indicator is called the Sniper Cloud. It's the most accurate trading indicator I've ever made. It is incredible. Basically, the way it works, as long as price holds above this midline here and it continues to hold it as support, the price will go up. But as soon as it loses this middle line here and the bands flip red, you will see that the market dumps. You guys can try this today for free.
Even though this is like very short term. So remember, guys, with all these indicators, they might be right, but in the long term, there's so many factors that you really cannot predict. Classic XRP price chart patterns targets $5 as spot ETFs draws reality closer. XRP analysts highlight potential to rebound the new all-time highs over the next few meets. Rise to 87%. I feel like it would be like 90%. I really don't feel like why they wouldn't approve this if they approved Bitcoin and Ethereum already, and it's following the same strategy to get it approved.
Is saying that this move is happening. And look at this. The XRP spot ETF approval odds are now up to 87%, especially with all this recent regulation. The ETFs are what has brought Bitcoin up to its current levels, and the ETFs for XRP, in my opinion, are going to be doing very similar things. Now, according to the 4-year cycles, Bitcoin should top out in October, and people are calling for a $50,000 Bitcoin once it bottoms. And if you take a look, literally, Bitcoin every single 4 years, it repeats this exact same cycle, and it's supposed to top out in October. But with Trump doing everything he is doing and all the regulation that's happening, I do think we will top out sometime in the 4th quarter of this year.
That's the same thing I was calling, because right now, if the markets are pumping, they also need a breather. They need time to recover, and 1 month is not enough. I feel like 2026 could be taking up to a year to recover, maybe even more. You know, these are really going to be cycles, and before Trump leaves, I feel like he's going to try to pump the markets for one last time because it's going to look good for his presidency, you know? And I think that will happen. Also, it's going to be good for the economy. He's going to be thinking for both of things. And that's what the plan is. Look, the market pumped when he came in, and the market also is trying to pump now, first year of his election. Maybe there's going to be 2 years that, you know, crypto is going to be down, but the 4th year I feel like is also going to be super big because people look at the start, how you know, it happened and how it ended. That's like the point of the movies as well. And yeah, those 2 years we can wait it out in my opinion, but I am waiting for more data on that, guys, before I make some assumptions. That is what we're seeing right now in the crypto markets.
To go crazy, and we see a crazy altcoin season. On top of that, Bitcoin dominance is still continuing to dump. Bitcoin dominance is still very bearish. The dollar is also still dumping. So everything is literally looking bullish. Now, if you guys are going to be trading cryptos, make sure.
So yeah, you get a pretty clear idea of what's happening here in the crypto markets. Is we are basically at a certain point of the economy doing good. But this pump, this cycle pump, I feel like in terms of retail, because retail still hasn't returned, is going to be weaker, way weaker than 2021. And I feel like every single year it's going to focus more on institutions and companies in like the future. So yeah, let that sink in. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Raoul Pal just confirmed it. Again, he is a multi-billionaire, and he knows about the Crypto Clarity Act in 4 areas: regulation, legislation, banking, and accounting. So I was saying that regulation is one of the most important factors for XRP, and we're seeing it hit it off right now. It's going big for it.
On clarity.
And it's a good thing that this happened, that this crypto regulation is coming through, because XRP is going to be the one that's going to profit most out of it from all other cryptos. Maybe there's going to be a few others, but XRP is the #1 winner for sure out of that, you know, Senate hearing we were hearing a few months ago.
In 4 areas right now at the exact same time. It's seeing regulatory clarity, it's seeing legislative clarity, it's seeing banking clarity, which goes to your question, and it's seeing accounting clarity. And what I mean by that is look at what's happening. For the first time ever, the SEC and the CFTC are all sort of really beginning to launch these crypto sprints, start to give definitions of what things mean, start to work together collectively to ensure that people at least know what they're building towards, right? When you get into the legislative camp, right, the U.S. passed the first ever legislation in the crypto space with the DeFi broker rule being repealed.
The Federal Reserve,
right? It passed its first real serious crypto, I would say, positive step forward with the Genius Act. It's currently...
I mean, it needed 4 years to do that, and finally we are here, guys. That's the big thing for crypto. Once it gets rolling, isn't it wonderful that it just came out just as this crypto halving? So every good scenario we got together.
Debating and discussing market structure surrounding sort of the DeFi ecosystem. This is unbelievable, right? Then you get to banking. And here's a really fascinating one. Like I sat down with a big bank the other day, and I said to the individual, I'm still laughing to this day as to the fact that we could now talk to each other. Like there was a point that they wouldn't return my calls. Now you have to remember, when I was at Time, some of the biggest banks were some of our biggest partners. When I was at Bloomberg, I worked with all of them very closely. So I know all these folks. And for a while, like I was sort of like a leper on the leper colony, right? Like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's true. I knew I could make you laugh with that, Raul. That's going to be the clip, right? That's my hamburger clip.
Leper colony.
Leper. I was a leper, right? Like that's how I felt in the first, 2 years of building, right? Because we were building against such headwinds. But the big banks now, for the first time ever, are engaging, and they've repealed in the United States a lot of like the rules for the big banks to be able to participate in this evolution, right? And ultimately, like we're seeing a tremendous amount of support. I mean, I can say publicly that Citigroup, Bank of America, JPM have all been unbelievable in the past, I would say 3, 4, or 5 months, in terms of sitting down with us and having constructive conversations, real conversations. This is not saying that they're like saying, oh, we'll do anything, but like for the first time ever, we can have real conversations with them. And
so there's a couple reasons as to why large institutional managers and banks have not adopted XRP or integrated.
This is obviously because of the lawsuit, which I've been talking about now, but also the Clarity Act has basically not given any confirmation what XRP is, and involved a huge risk of their capital to invest into XRP. They weren't sure if the lawsuit would even be over. That's why no institutions bought XRP before. But with that over, that being said and done, we could be seeing a new influx of institutions adopting XRP tools for their daily transactions. Could be also corporations, could be anything at this point, because XRP serves many different needs
in their payment systems because they handle a large volume of money and transfers each day, thousands of them. So my price prediction for XRP, if it is going to get adopted globally in terms of institutional transfers and payment systems, is that it would have to be at $50. And that's the requirement that it will need in order to have enough volume and liquidity to handle the volume that will come from global payments. So we're talking about...
Now that's going to be the hard part, right? Getting that much volume into crypto institutions. That's where I'm worried. Will XRP really do that?
Large banks here that are moving trillions of dollars each day. So yeah, there's a lot of things that is happening to XRP, but not a lot of people know.
One of the issues that's not solved in the whole stack that you're doing, that I uniquely see where I am in the Cayman Islands, is our banks hate anything to do with crypto. And it's not because I have a political opinion, it's because of FATCA. It's all of the US KYC rules means that they're terrified of accepting money that they can't KYC properly. Meanwhile, in Switzerland, I have a relationship with Signum Bank, and Signum's fantastic, but they do on-chain KYC. So they can check, it's just a new way of doing it. We need KYC, the on-chain KYC, to get acceptance into the banking system for international. The US, they can do whatever they want, but for international payments, because of US rulings, it's actually really hard.
So as of right now, XRP does not have KYC. But coming tomorrow, on September 4th, the XRP ledger will introduce...
Now, this is a big thing. Know your customer for XRP KIC or whatever is the big thing that a lot of other projects were saying that XRP does not have. But enabling this will make them work with a lot of different banks. And XRP knows what the issues are with a lot of projects. That is the biggest news probably of this year, because this means they're going to have a lot of bigger partnerships as well.
Native tools for Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering compliance using decentralized identities, marking a significant shift towards institutional grade compliance. And this is something that the majority of people using the XRP ledger have agreed upon. We can see that over here, 82.86% of validators will enable users and institutions to manage KYC requirements natively on the XRP ledger.
Most new evolutions start from purely liberal.
So yeah, this is the big thing for XRP is they couldn't partner up because of this know your customer, because the banks want to know where they're getting the money from. Now this is going to be available if the banks request it from what I guess from the XRP ledger. And all they're missing now is this big chunky volume, which they could get from ETFs. Now we're not going to get $50 overnight. I don't even think we're going to get $15 overnight, but it is going to be happening, in my opinion, just with how much money there is and where it gets put into.
Libertarian principles, right? This will replace that. And most mass adoption occurs through convenience and it's more messy. For crypto to truly evolve, it would have to evolve in sync with the global financial ecosystem. And what that means ultimately is that licenses and the money transmitter licenses being MiCA compliant, being FinProm compliant, making sure your KYC and AML is as pure as possible and as clean as possible.
That's the biggest problem in crypto that a lot of these partnerships were having issues with.
It's unbelievably important.
The EU, the UK, and the offshore jurisdictions are terrified of the US regulations, and so they just reject everything. That's half the reason the UK banks won't take crypto is this.
So on September 4th, XRP is introducing native tools for KYC. So at the current moment, banks do not use XRP in Europe, and that is because stringent financial regulations, particularly those concerning know your customer and anti-money laundering, which is exactly what is getting integrated into XRP coming tomorrow. So what this is going to do is going to open XRP to the entire continent of Europe. XRP is heavily adopting their legal framework and actually progressing. And what we're going to start to see is more institutional adoption on a global scale. And by Ripple integrating KYC and AML directly into the XRP ledger, this means that everyone's going to have access to that on a global scale.
Now, this is what a lot of other chains like Ethereum and Bitcoin cannot do. That's why Bitcoin has gotten into store of value. And again, I love Bitcoin. But the issue is ledger can change a lot in the next 10 years. It already did last 10 years. So with this thing, being settled, who knows where XRP ledger is going to be in the next 10 years while Bitcoin will stay the same. And again, Bitcoin is probably it's always going to outperform XRP in terms of market cap, but XRP is still undervalued if you look at the potential it could be. Again, not financial advice, but it does look like in terms of its technology, it still has a long way to go.
The way that the US tends to operate from a regulatory perspective and the way that Europe tends to operate is completely different, right? The US tends to say, we're going to allow you to experiment and innovate in chaos until we tell you what the rules are. And the Europe tends to say, we're going to give you this box and you have to innovate within this box. Right. And then maybe we'll change the rules to accommodate where the innovation goes after the fact.
So at the current moment, the markets are a bit shaky for XRP, but one thing you have to have is conviction. If you're in it for the long term, the current market shakeout shouldn't affect you. And there's a clear reason as to why we are seeing Bitcoin drop and seeing this massive impact on the cryptocurrency market. So one thing you'll notice is that we're slowly inching towards altcoin season.
I feel like when a lot of people say price goes down, they bought it within a month or within 1 week. Because if they bought it a year ago, they would understand how the process goes for XRP.
And we are more in altcoin season than we are in terms of Bitcoin season. But I think it's very clear that we are in altcoin season. If you look at the past 30 days, Bitcoin is down 2.6%, whereas Ethereum is up 21%.
I don't think, in my honest opinion, we're in full altcoin season and we're not going to see it like 2021. I feel like XRP bootlegged everyone way before the altcoin season started. It had this major advantage.
So essentially what we're seeing is all of the money coming into Ethereum.
We're not going to see the same retail indicators. We're not only going to rely on retail. We will have to rely on other, cash flow basically in crypto space, and that is gonna be, you guessed it, institutions and the big players, not just retail, because that's what happened. Crypto crashed 90% when retail got out, when the crypto recession started. institutions are already a very big part that, you know, want to enter crypto.
Also Solana, but XRP hasn't had its run yet, being down 7% for the past 30 days. And personally, I think this is a huge buying opportunity because we got to consider the facts. What is going on? Everything is good for XRP. We had the Genius bill get passed. We had the SEC dismissal, and coming tomorrow, we're going to have further KYC regulations and AMLs, which is going to allow XRP to get integrated into European banking systems and also just banking systems globally. So XRP is meeting the legal scrutiny requirements. So here's a Bitcoin cycle repeat chart, and essentially it's a projection of where Bitcoin is headed by 2030. And right now we're over here. So when you notice this dip over here, that is the beginning of altcoin season, in which everyone takes their money out of Bitcoin and puts it into the top 10 cryptocurrencies. Essentially,
and who knows how this will like predict, like we're gonna suspect what will happen, but we can't really predict the markets. I feel like a lot of people underestimate how much the markets changed. Did anyone predict that XRP will be going 15%, like 300%, 400% up this year? I think not. But 15 banks already using XRP for payments and remittances. They're not really using it yet, but the good news is they are going to in the future once XRP can handle this type of volume, these type of transactions. So they already have partnerships, but this isn't fully launched yet, which is kind of good, I guess, because that means the price isn't at its peak possibly.
But it's looking more like 2030. And that quote came from the CEO of SBI Group. And SBI Group is one of the largest banks in Japan with over $80 billion in assets under management. So real demand for XRP is key to its long-term success. And XRP has real demand. It has all the utility and now it has all the legal framework that it needs to be successful and be one of the biggest competitors in the cryptocurrency industry. But we're just not seeing the price meet the demand.
That's because like a lot of these contracts probably take multiple years to happen.
We're going to see XRP's price just explode. So temporary market shakeouts like the one that is occurring right now in XRP is nothing in terms of the grand scale of things. And when we look at a map of Africa, there's already 13 countries that are using XRP and also RLUSD for P2P transactions. And these countries include Benin, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya.
So it's good that they already tested this and it works. I feel like for the big banks to use it, you know, which have trillions and trillions of volume, they don't want to see any mistakes coming from Ripple. That's why Ripple is like future-proofing it for the next 10 years. Because they don't want to have any errors on that way. And that's where the real hype comes in. So just let that sink in. That's what's happening right now for XRP. Is we are in those early testing stages. And again, these contracts, they take time. So it might take like 5-6 years before we see any like, you know, like crypto YouTubers are talking about $500 XRP. It's going to be hard this cycle, like even in 2025.
South Africa, which is a big one. And the reason as to why these countries are using XRP is because their inflation rates are very high and they simply cannot rely on their own national currency.
And also their transfer fees. Like if you pay a transfer fee, it's probably the same in similar countries. And it's going to be way, way more to send money abroad in terms of how much you're earning compared to when you send it in US. That's why US hasn't been rushing that much with this. But other countries have been on board for XRP since like 2018.
Sometimes corruption does also play a role. So if you want to keep your assets safe, XRP is obviously the best choice in this case. And I'm just trying to make sure that you guys get all of the information.
But yeah, pretty good video overall. There's another one. XRP holders, Flare's 100 million DeFi breakthrough could change everything. And again, this was a big partnership I did miss out on last week. I didn't notice it, but it is happening here now, and it's doubling down. So Flare's XRP launch brings DeFi power to XRP, and XRP is expanding at massive levels, guys, which I'm super excited because these are the type of partnerships that you don't notice. But these are the ones that really matter, which have the biggest change to the price.
We should be in September, and then they will be launching soon after we've launched FXRP on Flare. So as I said, Flare is sort of layer one. We can get into that a bit later and why it exists and what its plans are. But Flare is very much around, its first product is very much around bringing utility to XRP and other assets that don't have smart contracts, which are the majority of the value in the space, and bringing utility to those assets and allowing them to be used in DeFi and really quite exotic use cases.
So this is the moment that XRP holders have been waiting for. A real DeFi application that puts
And also Flare is a pretty big project. It's not like a small project partnering up with XRP. It's one of the biggest out there. So you guys should definitely know that. That Flare is also having other partnerships. But the type of partnerships this is, it's a very big one.
I think otherwise, and I'm going to explain to you why. So we're going to look at the very right-hand side of CoinMarketCap and look at the 30-day percentage. One thing that you'll notice is that for the past 30 days, Bitcoin has dropped 2.83%, which is a massive drop. And we have seen Ethereum go up 27%. We have also seen Solana go up 26% and BNB go up 14.89%. And these are the major layer one blockchains. This is where everyone goes to purchase the tiny market cap altcoins. So we're seeing this huge transition away from Bitcoin and into Ethereum. People are using the Ethereum blockchain to purchase new coins. We're also seeing this huge shift into BNB.
It also seems like that DeFi is not that big of a thing anymore as it was 4 years ago with retail and meme coins. I feel like we're outgrowing this type of stuff like meme coins, DeFi. Like the markets just didn't find much use for it. And they're instead shifting, like XRP final knew for 10 years that its biggest part is going to be technology for companies. That's my personal opinion. I could be totally wrong, but DeFi volume is all-time down, like decentralized exchanges or whatever. Actually, it's way, way up than I thought before in 2023. But the big thing is, like, compared to XRP gets that volume so much easier.
For the same purpose, and a huge shift to Solana, which is where the majority of these small cap altcoins are coming from, and we see it going up 26%. So do not be fooled. This is the beginning stages of altcoin season. There's just a bit of uncertainty in the market at the current moment. But one thing that is going to change this uncertainty is the upcoming rate cuts meeting later on in September. So Hugo reveals that Vivo Power committed $100 million of XRP to Flare's ecosystem.
We were talking with Vivo Power. They like what Flare is doing. They like what Firelight is doing. They like our downstream DeFi ecosystem from staking. They decided to commit $100 million of XRP to the Flare ecosystem.
So do you feel like this is going to be one of the tool sets that institutional capital could come in and say, hey, this is a great example of how XRP can be put to work? Do you anticipate more companies kind of joining what Vivo is doing and starting to use Flare as the outlet?
Absolutely. Okay. We think that one of the larger sort of opportunities for Flare in the space is digital asset treasury companies like Vivo.
They already invested $20 million, right? So that's something.
Hold XRP, and there are a few, but Vivo's one of the biggest, if not the biggest. But exchanges as well, because I think around 80% of people that hold XRP are holding their XRP on an exchange. And exchanges want to be able to offer their customers a way to get yield on the tokens they're holding. So, really our focus in business development around the DeFi ecosystem for XRP on Flare and for Firelight has been around courting exchanges. And then, of course, having other types of vaults, not Firelight. So
here's the thing. Institutions aren't just sitting on the sideline. They're putting serious money into XRP Vault.
I mean, they're doing that also because they believe in the technology. They believe in the future that XRP will bring it. And they also know that XRP, or they're suspecting XRP will go up even if it takes, 10 years, even if it takes 5-6 years. They know Ledger is going to be out because now they have enough money to actually sustain themselves through multiple bear markets.
And this is before they even launch. So while retail is panicking, big buyers are getting in. And this is not hype, this is conviction. So this kind of capital flow can really anchor XRP in the altcoin season. We're not just gonna see Ethereum pump, we're not just gonna see Solana pump, XRP will be the biggest competitor. And I think XRP is going to have the biggest room for growth and drive adoption faster than most people expect. So Flare vaults run on chain, not on centralized exchanges, which of course reduces counterparty risk.
Absolutely. So we've been talking to a lot of the Morpho-like entities, and you know, they're very keen on coming to the Flare ecosystem.
Interesting. That's intriguing to me.
I'd also say that you know, more classic TradFi loan companies, you know, are also very interested because they hold large amounts of XRP, and they want to go to effectively get more XRP. They like.
Why
want
wouldn't
to,
they?
go to compete in that market.
Yeah.
And you know, if they can get yield out of that, that's a good
fantastic
for them.
So this is critical. We've seen FTX and centralized platforms wipe out investors overnight. This has happened time and time again.
I think this is going to like future-proof it as well, because these vaults are going to be decentralized. They're not going to have an owner. So nobody can just take out of the vault. You can take it yourself. That's what I really like. And it will be on XRP Ledger where basically all the stuff to trade is super not costly.
Is Binance. But Flare removes that risk by keeping everything on chain. So in a market full of fear, safety is a selling point and is paramount. And I think XRP vaults look much more secure and a lot more stronger than centralized yield products. So Hugo is going to give a contrast to Flare's dedicated entrepreneurial team with outsourced competitors.
Well, and if you look at what Persist, of course, this is kind of the one that everybody's comparing against. This is obviously on the EVM sidechain.
Why would people come to Flare and Firelight versus Persist?
Exactly, yes.
Well, I think one of the things that is very interesting from simply a competition perspective is that Flare has built Flare by itself.
And also Flare is number 62 on market cap right now. So it's basically the third biggest market cap collaboration with a 62 ranked project coin. Flare is a full stack layer 1 solution designed for data intensive use cases. So I'm guessing they will store data on the chain itself. They're saying they have data protocols, Ethereum virtual machine. I need to look into that. Like they're using proof of stake. So they're launching. Okay, so we have more updates here. Definitive is strategic partnership to deploy $100 million in XRP for institutional yield. So this is a $100 million partnership. Publicly traded company focused on XRP-centric treasury strategy today announced the launch of a definite partnership with Flare to generate yield on its digital assets. The agreement initiates the deployment of Vivo Power's XRP holdings through a scalable framework beginning with a benchmark initial phase of 100 million. So I'm guessing it could go more than 100 million. The first major execution of Vivo's Power's new corporate strategy, weren't they like they want to have XRP treasuries from what I heard? So then you can see more here. It's no longer enough to simply hold XRP. The duty to our shareholders is to make it productive. So they're going to lock it in. They're going to lock in 100 million XRP, I'm guessing, and making a compounding strategy. I'm not sure, did they get like XRP from the burn fees? That's a good question for me to learn. The XRP ledger is the proven standard for settlement, a new layer of utility required to unlock the full potential of digital assets. So maybe in the future, like XRP staking, from what I heard, there's going to be like a video out there. I saw from Paul Barron that XRP is going to have staking. And that's what a lot of these companies do. They believe in 5-year plans. They don't say, why didn't the price go up after one single day? It's because they are waiting for the big push.
Almost entirely. We raised the financing for it. We built the team. And we've always been agile in that sense. We've always been very big supporters of XRP. In fact, we airdropped our token to the XRP holders. That has enabled us to take a different view on how markets work. With respect to the Persist team, they are an employed team. They're an external contractor. And I just frankly don't believe that an external contractor can ever really have as much skin in the game as a huge entrepreneurial team. And I think really the testament to that is that, you know, Firelight chose to launch on Flare, didn't choose to launch on the Persist XRP EVM sidechain. And that's because Flare understands better what is needed in the market because we have a lot more to lose.
So here's why this matters. Flare is built by a team with skin in the game. They're not just contractors. They're fully invested in XRP's future. And in times of market uncertainty, people trust projects that are all in and have conviction.
That's XRP basically, is distancing itself away from crypto and going heavy on being like this institution friendly, not even like, it's trying to be a company, not even a crypto coin project. When you think of Ripple, it's not, the only thing they associate with XRP right now is like the burns. They use XRP for the burns, but 99% of their like main work is with the banks.
And that's what Flare has to offer. So that narrative alone could push more adoption towards Flare's vaults instead of other alternatives. So in this part of the interview, Hugo suggested starting cautiously, saying that maybe 25% of assets, then scaling as trust builds.
Hugo, how much DeFi do you think is going, with the DeFi ecosystem within XRP now starting to expand, how much do you think is going to be unlocked just this year, in the last few months of this year?
I mean, I'd like to see Flare at 5 billion XRP by mid-2026.
So 5 billion XRP locked would be amazing. I don't think that will happen, but let me know your comments, guys, down below.
People saying, hey, I'm going to deploy 50% of my assets into platforms like this, 20% of my assets. What's a good balance there? Because for me, I've been looking at a variety of vaults and trying to diversify within them. What do you think is the best?
So I think it entirely depends on your personal circumstances, what your portfolio looks like, what your holdings look like. You know, when a product is new, I would always be a little more careful.
Sure.
Probably, wouldn't go above 25% of my assets. As I start to understand the product and as the product proves out its capabilities and also its safety, if I was inclined to do so, I would increase my sizing.
So I think this advice is golden. You should start small and then scale once the system is able to.
That's what they're doing, like $100 million of XRP, and they're pushing for 5 billion. And if 5 billion of XRP is going to be locked and generating revenue for all these people, then it's going to be a win-win, right? That's going to be $5 billion out of the market of XRP, and people will get their returns from the yield. I'm guessing it is from transaction yields, which are not super high right now, but they are suspecting it will grow in the future from what I'm getting at. Like that XRP will get more liquidity in terms of that sense. Or these are the treasuries, right? So who knows how this works? Could be very much so. But this adds extra liquidity for the XRP bank transfers, which need a lot of XRP for the burns right now, guys. So remember, XRP needs to be a lot of money to get those burns, and this is just a huge win that nobody's talking about. It's like a 100 million up to $5 billion partnership. Guys, I will keep you updated with more news. I was streaming for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I love you all. Smash that like button and see you guys soon. I really appreciate